a greedy upstart who seduced the Duke with her beauty in order to bathe in luxury. That's what everyone thought about Rowan Philo Duke Callion's mistress. The lady asks if she has seen Rowana and also asks how she likes this bag. The woman replies that she is speechless and asks if she has seen the dress and then says that it is from the Harden boutique and she has been waiting for hers for 3 months. The lady in the green dress suggests looking at the earrings and necklace because she thinks it looks like the Duke gave her family jewelry. Men drool over this girl, that she feels sick. After all, she understands that the Duke of Devonshire is rich and influential, but she wonders if she has no dignity at all. The Countess says that even if she dresses like an empress, she is just a mistress and has no future. The lady agrees with her and claims that she is speaking correctly, and then asks where he dug up this slut, since no one knows where she comes from. The butler turns to Miss Filoni and informs her that his lordship is waiting in the carriage. Hearing this, the ladies were surprised because they had no idea that she was anywhere nearby. The main character says that she is going, and then quickly gets into the carriage. The Duke looked at the young lady and asked what was wrong this time, and then said that he had fulfilled her request. The lady apologizes because she didn't want to upset him, and then claims that everything is fine and that he shouldn't worry. Rowana says that he can't even imagine how grateful she is that he was able to find time for her. The girl says that she really liked the opera, but at that moment Callion touches her face and asks why she frowned. Then, the man tells her to answer, and then asks if she thinks he will grovel before his mistress. At this time, the main character remembered the words of the ladies, and then explains that she is a little tired. Killian says that since she herself knows that she is guilty, he orders her to accept punishment. Rowana slapped his hand away, and he tells her to film it with her mouth, and asks if she wants to apologize. The girl objects and says what she wants, and then she takes off his gloves with her lips. When the gentleman looked at the lady, it excited him, and he began to kiss her. The next day, the maid tells the mistress that it looks like the Duke had a good time yesterday because he sent her both a bouquet and new shoes, and then asks if she liked it. Miss says that she also had a good time, and the maid says that she envies her because she couldn't save up for the cheapest ticket even in 3 months. After all, it was an example since the prima donna herself performed. Rowana asks, in surprise, if she really wanted to go that much. The maid replies that she really wanted to, and her brother always made fun of her because she always dreamed of becoming an opera singer. The maid combs her mistress's hair and asks what she dreamed of becoming. The main character thought for a bit and then said that she wanted to become a writer. The maid asks if her uncle is a famous writer, and the lady replies that he is the famous Jeremy Dish. Rowana remembered her uncle's words about how he told her that he would always be glad to see her. The maid screams and says that he writes detective stories, and she has heard a lot about him, and also wonders if it is true that he lives in seclusion and never appears in public. The maid says that she is interested in what he looks like and thinks that he is probably handsome if he looks a little like her. Miss says that who knows, because she is also interested in whether they will meet again, and then says that the last time she saw him was 3 years ago, right before she got on the train to the capital, driven by dreams of becoming a writer. The main character thought about what if she hadn't met the Duke then, or even vice versa, if she hadn't trusted her friend who convinced her to leave. At this time, the estate's housekeeper, Madame Gertrude, enters the room and asks to be allowed to enter, as she has something to tell her. The woman apologizes for disturbing her at such an early hour, and then says that she has to go to Rockford. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, and then said that it was still early. The housekeeper explains that the schedule has changed slightly. The main character thought that maybe something had happened, and then asked if the Duke was coming too. The woman replies that he is not going, and at this time the main character thought that she could not ask why he was staying. The housekeeper says that she will tell the maids to prepare everything for departure, and says that the mistress is leaving the day after tomorrow at lunchtime. Madame Gertrude tells the lady that there is a letter for her from the publishing company. Hearing this, the girl was happy and then thanked. The housekeeper went to the Duke's office and reported that she had conveyed his messages to Miss Falone. The gentleman says it's a good job and then tells her she can go. Hearing this, the woman claims that it is just in time for him to send her away. He asks what the ladies mean. Madame Gertrude reports that the Marchioness of Essex, his aunt, told her that the Queen had recently invited the daughter of a foreign magnate who turned out to be ripe for marriage. The woman says that she added that he probably knows what this must mean because he is an intelligent man. The Duke says that she is the daughter of a magnate, and as he sees it, she has finally taken on the role of matchmaker, and he is interested in what she is trying to get in return for selling him out. Hearing this, the maid was surprised, and the master said that he believed that Miss Falona had completed her task and asked if she was now useless. At this point, the Duke remembers that the Queen asked him if this was his way of rebelling against her. Killian says that he is afraid because he does not understand what she means. Her Majesty asks if he really thought she wouldn't notice the resemblance between his mistress and her late bride. The Duke assures that he does not care about the deceased, and then says that Rowena will never become a duchess and will never bear his child. The Queen asks what he wants. Then Callian replies that he wants her to stop trying to woo foreign princesses and rich men's daughters. Her Majesty says that she thinks that he will soon get bored with this girl anyway. And so after some time, Rowena began to be treated as the Duke's companion. However, 3 years later, the Duke thought that the Queen was probably angry because he was not even going to get rid of his mistress. The housekeeper reports that one of the girls of marriageable age is also a green-eyed blonde, and the Marchioness saw her with her own eyes, and according to him, she even looks more like his bride than Miss Falone. Hearing this, the gentleman smiled, and then told Gertrude that he had already forgotten what she looked like. Callian doesn't understand why everyone thinks he's in love with someone he's only seen once, and that was in childhood. And at that moment, he thought that he can't blame them for that. The gentleman remembers that he did meet Rowena when he was returning from the funeral. Gertrude asks if he is going to get rid of her, and then assures him that she is of no use. Callian claims that she belongs to him, and then asks why he would part with his beloved pet. The housekeeper says that because of her, he will never find a bride. The Duke says that his mother died a long time ago, and then asks if he is confused about something. Hearing this, the woman asked for forgiveness, and the gentleman said that he forgives and told her to leave. Gertrude asked if she could say something else, and then said that she thought Miss Falona was cheating on him. Hearing this, the gentleman broke his pen because he never imagined that he would hear such a thing. The next day, the maid asks her mistress in surprise what they are doing on Harlem Street, since she knows that they went out for groceries, and also wonders where she got the men's clothes in her bag. Rowena took the maid by the hands and asked her to promise not to tell anyone. The main character says that when her parents went on a honeymoon that they had been postponing for a long time, they caught some kind of infection and died suddenly. The girl explains that none of her relatives cared about the orphan, and in the end, her mother's younger brother, Uncle Jeremy, agreed to look after her. The lady reports that for the next 20 years, she lived in the suburbs in almost complete isolation, until one day she received a letter inviting her to the capital. A friend writes that she can send her work to any capital city publisher and calmly wait for a response at her home. Ravana says she jumped on a train without thinking twice and went to a completely unfamiliar place. However, her friend left her with a lot of debt, and she had to constantly hide from collectors. The friend asked for forgiveness and then said that she had no other choice because her uncle earns well, and she is sure that the girl will cover all the debts. The main character says that she never decided to ask him for help because he dissuaded her from going to the capital. While she was hiding, the man said to search every nook and cranny because he believed that she could not have gone far. The girl says that she should have listened to her uncle, and at that moment a carriage stops and the Duke comes out. He gives her his hand and offers to go with him. The main character agreed and thus found herself there as the most elegant and vulgar woman. The young lady realizes that if she had not believed her friend's letter, and if she had not followed him that night, she realizes that perhaps she could have started her relationship with Killian on the right foot. Rowana thinks that perhaps their relationship could have developed differently, but she understands that he is not one of those who confesses his love. But she knows that he loves her, and she loves him. The main character dreams of becoming a successful writer to repay her debt and become his equal, and then explains to the maid that this is why she sent her work. The maid says in surprise that she had no idea, and then asks why she would dress up as a man. The lady explains that it is just a precaution, as she knows that she may not be recognized, and then asks the maid if she will not tell anyone. The maid assures that her mouth is shut. The main character dresses up as a man and tells the president of the publishing company, William, that she is Philip McCartney. The director suggests getting straight to the point and then says that he liked his draft but would like to make some amendments. William explains that he likes his style, but the story seems to be detached from reality since the main character only goes to a very limited number of places, in exclusive restaurants, in five-star hotels, on luxury yachts. The director says that he describes them perfectly, and he already sees girls reading his book and dreaming of going there, and then he asks if the general public will like it. The man suggests adding, for example, noisy bars, parks bathed in sun, a blooming lake shore, because he understands that this will make it easier for the reader to associate with the hero. The main character says that he has never been to such places. William says that then he has a chance to try them out for himself and suggests meeting tomorrow at noon in Conwell Park. The director says that he has another meeting scheduled right after this and suggests that he leave now and then reminds him not to forget about it in the park tomorrow. When the main character returned to the carriage, the maid asked how everything went and wondered if she had signed the contract. Rowena says she is not sure, and the maid asks in surprise what they were talking about. She replies that she does not want to go into details now and will tell later. Duke Killian was generous to his mistress, and he was patient enough to overlook minor mistakes. The man thought about how he always spoke to her and treated her with a certain level of respect, despite the fact that she was below him in social status. Moreover, he never kept Rowena locked up, forbidding her to ever leave the castle. But there was one rule that could never be broken. The girl was supposed to wait for him in the bedroom when he returned home. In the evening, the main character was met by the housekeeper, who said that she was late, and then reported that the Duke was waiting for her. The young lady says that he must have returned early today, and then says that she will first tidy herself up. Madame Gertrude reports that he told her to come to him as soon as she returned. At this time, the Duke was enjoying wine, and when the girl entered the room, she said that he had returned early. Killian says that sometimes this happens, and then offers her to sit next to him. At this time, the main character realized that he just returned and has not changed his clothes yet, and then asks why he is drinking alone. The Duke says that he once had a dog, and then pours wine into the glass in a thin stream, and goes on to say that it was a gift from the Queen, and that she was a beautiful hound with a shiny black coat. The gentleman says that she was graceful and smart enough to understand all his commands, and then he gives her a piece of cheese and says that this dog was so smart that it returned the birds he shot before he ordered it to do so. The man reports that something happened one day, and the girl asks in surprise what exactly. He reports that the dog broke loose from its chain and ran away. Rowana asks if she ever came back. He says she did, but not before she mated with some mongrel and got pregnant, and her belly was bulging, and she rubbed her face against his leg like nothing happened. Killian says that he waited for her to give birth, and he found a mongrel similar to those puppies, and killed them all in front of her. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, and the man said that his dog then tried to bite him, and that's why he killed it too, and then explains that since then, he hasn't had a dog. The Duke turns to the lady and says that he will show no mercy to the dog that betrayed him. At this time, the main character looked at the gentleman and thought that he knew that she went to the publishing company this morning. Killian claims that if it was nothing more than a momentary indiscretion, he could let it slide, and then says that as for her moving to Rockford, it looks like they'll have to delay it a bit. The gentleman explains that he will soon be very busy, so he will not stay here for long, and hopes that she will be a good girl until the ball is over. The next morning, the maid tells her mistress that it is time to get up, and then reminds her that she has a meeting today, and it is already noon. Melissa asks if she is not meeting someone from the publishing company in the park today. Hearing this, the girl, surprised, asks if she told her that she was dating him. She replies that she did. Rowena says that if she thinks about it, she doesn't think she should go, because she knows the Duke is already unhappy with her, and so she doesn't want to make things worse by doing something that could be misconstrued. The maid tells the miss that she has something to confess, and then says that she read her manuscript yesterday, and it is not the one she brought to the publishing house, but the other one that was in her bag, and then apologizes. The lady assures Melissa that everything is fine. Hearing this, the maid was delighted, and then touched the lady's hand, and says that perhaps she does not understand anything about writing, but she can say that she is exceptionally talented. Melissa says she wouldn't want her to miss this rare opportunity, and then says they can record her today, and asks who knows. The maid claims that this may be her only chance, and if she returns to Rockford, she will have to stay there for 6 months, and therefore she believes that it is a waste of time. The main character grabbed the girl by the shoulders and said that she was right, and then said that she would go and offered to do it because she didn't think that she should be there this time, but she thought that it was an important question. Melissa suggests that the lady not worry, and if she tells her where she meets him, she will accompany her on the way there and back. The maid says that since she will not be home all the time, Madame Gertrude will not suspect anything. Hearing this, the lady smiled and thanked her. The main character quickly changed into a guy and then went to meet the publisher. Sitting in a restaurant, the director says that this is what a typical date consists of, and then shows the contract that he put on the table. The girl says that she thought he didn't like her story very much, and the director objects and says that he said that he liked the mood and the writing style. William tells her that he accepted his offer and came here today, and this means that they have great potential for growth, and then gives her a flower. Rowana asks him in surprise why he is giving her flowers. He replies that it is to congratulate him on signing the contract. And the guy asks in surprise if he gives flowers to everyone. William explains that this is his first contract, and every time a writer signs his first contract with them, he gives him a rose. The main character was surprised, and then said that he was embarrassed. Then she takes the rose and thanks him. The director reports that after he put his seal on the contract, they agreed to communicate through Melissa from now on, and that was the end of their business for today. After some time, the maid asks the mistress how the writing is going, and says that she brought her something to eat. Rowena smiled, and then announced that she was almost finished. Melissa reports that Madame Gertrude says that the Duke is not in the capital at the moment, and thinks that this is good, since the lady has more time to work on the manuscript. The maid says that she hasn't heard from him for a week, and understands that usually when he leaves for a long time, he tells her about it in advance, or always contacts her and asks if it seems strange. Rowena thinks he must be very busy, and in the evening, lying in bed, the young lady became interested in how the Duke was, but suddenly she wanted to drink water, but stopped near the door because she heard a conversation about Duke Killian attending yesterday's banquet with the second daughter of Count Vanessa. The girl peeked and saw the maids talking about this. One of them said that given his age, she would not be surprised at all if this time he was seriously planning to get married, since she knows that he has not worked for a long time. The maid says that this is true, because until now, his aunt, the Marchioness of Essex, managed the country house on his behalf, but she is getting on in years, and she wonders what will happen to Miss Falloon. The maid says she is sure he will pay her to leave, because she believes that people may not talk about it openly, but no one in their right mind would give their daughter to someone who has a mistress living with him. And what kind of nobleman would create such a scandal? The maid asks if she thinks the queen would like her nephew to marry someone better than the count's daughter. And as far as she understands, Duke Killian is still in love with his fiancée, who died 3 years ago, and that is why he has remained unmarried all this time. Another maid says she heard about it too and thinks it was obviously amazing because a man who can't forget his first love squeals with joy and thinks it's very romantic. Hearing this, the main character staggered, and the maids became frightened and wondered what that sound was. Rowena turned over an empty bucket that she hadn't seen, and the maid claims that there is someone there, and her friend asks if she thinks it is Miss Rowena. The maid says that she doubts it, but will go and check, and then enters the room and asks if there is anyone there. At this time, the girl tripped, and she doesn't know what to do because she thinks that they might notice her. The housekeeper comes into the room and asks why they are all here instead of working. The girls are surprised when they see her and then apologize and explain that they were just talking. The woman claims that whatever they are talking about, they need to be quieter, and then she sees an open door and pushes it. Gertrude turns to the maids and tells them that if she catches them again, it will be their last day there, and then tells them to get back to work. At this time, the main character who hid behind the door was very scared because she did not want to be noticed, and when the woman left, she sighed with relief. The next day, the maid wishes good luck to her mistress, who is dressed as a man, and then says that when she publishes her first book, you will expect a copy from her. Rowena says that of course she will give them some copies. When the main character was left alone, she remembered the words of the maids that the Duke was in love with his bride, who died 3 years ago, but she believes that this is just a rumor. The girl reflects on the fact that for 3 years she lived as Killian's lover and never noticed any signs that he had actually forgotten his first love. The main character remembers with tenderness how he always took care of her. William asks if he has thought about his proposal, and the girl replies that he has thought about it a lot and hands over her manuscripts. The director offers to take a look, and at that moment he remembered the words of Gertrude, who gave him money to pretend, but he must admit that this lady's manuscripts are much better than he imagined. The man understands that in this world, money decides everything, and he touched the manuscript and said that it was wonderful, and as soon as the editing was finished, they could publish it right away. Hearing this, the girl was happy and asked if it was true. The man assured that it was true, and he was not joking, and then opened the window. The director looked out onto the street and thought that he knew she was being followed. At this time, the Duke was invited to enter the room, and he saw the half-naked illegitimate son of Count Felix. When the guy saw the Count, he was surprised and then asked what he owes for such an honor. The gentleman says that as far as he can see, he still lives like a piece of trash, Felix, and the guy asks if that surprises him. The girls remind him to invite them again, and the guy says that they will see each other soon. The Count asks the young gentleman what he has for him. He replies that the gentleman was right, and that illegal import of alcohol is taking place in the southern port, and then puts on a robe. Killian says that he knew this because after the Queen banned the import of alcohol, only authorized people are allowed to import alcohol. Smuggling alcohol was a serious punishable crime, with all property confiscated and even death sentences. But some still tried to import alcohol, despite the risks. The reason was simple, and it was a very profitable business. The guy asks what he's going to do because he told him to find out about it carefully, and thinks that means he's not going to act like the secret police. The Duke says that he is going to appropriate all this for himself. Hearing this, the young man is surprised and asks if he is saying that he will betray the Queen, and considers that this is a huge risk, and he is not the one who should warn him, and then asks if his own is not enough for him. Killian says that he is not interested in money, only in power, so that no one tells him what to do, and then clenches his fist. The gentleman says that the power is competing with the power of the Queen, and the guy says that it is clear to him, and then asks if he wants to strengthen his influence in the shadows. The gentleman reminds him that he didn't ask him to find out something else, and the young man says that before he tells him, he can ask what it is about. The guy says that he heard that this gentleman, the president of the publishing house, and someone was following him, and they went to the park and then to a restaurant with Miss Philo E., disguised as a man. The young man says that for some reason Miss Filoni was dressed as a man, and that they supposedly talked about the manuscript, and then shows a photo of their meeting. At this time, the Duke thought that the pieces of the puzzle had finally come together. The guy asks where the Lord orders him to go, and he replies that he should go to where Miss Filoni is, and then he says that he needs someone to keep an eye on Gertrude. The fair-haired young man asks if the gentleman wants him to find a man. He agrees with him and says that it should be a quiet and inconspicuous man. The assistant reminds that the Marchioness of Essex is arriving today and thinks that she must have arrived already. When Auntie saw Killian, she hugged him with joy. He asked how Auntie was feeling. She replied that she was wonderful and just fine, and then said that she had spoken to the Queen. When the Duke saw Filona, he asked if she had been slapped. The aunt turns to the lady and says that her master asked her a question. And at this time, the main character remembered the conversation about how the madam said that because of her Killian's reputation was ruined, and asked if she knew about it. The woman claims that he is young and has needs, and that is why she tolerates her, because she believes that it is better for him to sleep with her than with just anyone. And the aunt suggests that the girl simply remember to take birth control, because if she gets pregnant, she will disgrace him even more, and she will not tolerate that. Rowana says that he really cares about her hearing this. The woman was surprised, and the girl says that if she gets pregnant from him, she will no longer decide anything here. Hearing this, the Marquise hit the main character. At this time, the lady explains that she behaved stupidly in front of Mrs. Essex and claims that this is all. Hearing this, the young gentleman was surprised and then turned to his aunt and asked if she could explain how his stupid, ill-mannered mistress had shown disrespect to his beloved aunt. The Marquise was surprised, and Madame Gertrude turned to his lordship and asserted that he must have misunderstood everything. The Duke reminds her that she said the girl was being disrespectful, and so he is just trying to find out what happened, and also wondering what he misunderstood. Gertrude says that when Miss Filoni was going down the stairs, she spilled tea on the Marquise's coat, and it happened by accident, and the Marquise got a little scared. Essex says she was simply teaching her a lesson because the girl dared to spill tea on her. Rowana turns to the Duke and says that Madame Gertrude is telling the truth because her hand shook and she made a mistake, and for this she was slapped. The lady says she's fine and asks him not to be angry. The guy tells the lady to close her eyes and ears and go upstairs. Killian rolled up his sleeves and then broke the cup and said that it was an accident, and the Marquise asked him not to do it. The gentleman asks if she didn't want his mother's tea set, which she received from the Queen, and then suggests that she catch it since it is his gift for her lesson. The Duke began throwing cups at the door, and they quickly broke while the Marquise stood and asked for help. The gentleman says that she didn't catch a single one, and he's very sorry, and then says that he remembered that she also exchanged glances with these swords. At this time, the main character runs up to him and hugs him from behind, then asks him to stop and do it for her sake, and explains that she is afraid and claims that she is to blame for all this. Killian reminds her that he told her to go upstairs and then picks her up, and at that time the girl loses consciousness. When the main character opened her eyes, she saw that she was lying in bed and there was a maid next to her. Melissa says that thank God she woke up and offers to drink some water. Rowana thanks her and then asks where she is. The maid explains that it is another Devonshire estate and that she has never been there either. The lady asks in surprise how she got there. Melissa says that she knew the lady would ask her about it because she assumed that she would not remember, and then says that according to the local maids, the Duke carried her in his arms last night while she was unconscious. The main character asks what happened to the Marquise and Madame Gertrude, and at that moment, the maid comes in and says that her name is Bianca and she is the manager of this estate. Hearing this, the lady thought that if she was the manager, then she was a member of the same circle as Madame Gertrude. Bianca says that she will bring the lady breakfast, and a few minutes later she brought food on a cart. Rowana was surprised because these were her favorite dishes, and the maid said that she was glad that she liked it, and smiled, and then suggested that she not get up because she brought her a tray so that it would be comfortable for her to eat. The girl asks where the Duke is now. The housekeeper replies that he left early in the morning to discuss with the king's deputy the taxes collected this year, and said that he would be back for lunch. Bianca tells the lady that if she needs anything, she should ring the bell that is on the table. The main character thought that she had never been treated like that, and she didn't even know how to react, and remembered that the previous maids always whispered, and then she said not to talk to her so respectfully. Melissa asks the lady why she is behaving like this, because she thinks she deserves it, and Bianca agrees with her and says that she is right, and besides, the Duke told them to take good care of her. The housekeeper says that while Miss Filoni is here, she wants her to feel at home, and the lady thanks her. The housekeeper greeted his lordship. He asks if there is any news. She replies that there is nothing special. When the Duke saw the girl, he extended his hand to her and asked if she had already had lunch. The girl replied that she had not eaten yet, and he suggested that they have lunch together wherever she wanted. At this time, the main character thought that she expected him to reproach her for her interference yesterday, but since this did not happen, she happily agreed, and the gentleman asked the lady how she likes the new house. Rowana says that it is beautiful and even bigger than she expected. Killian asks, "What about Bianca and the maids?" And the girl claims that they are all very kind to her. And at that time, she thought about how the Duke always gave her the best. Unlike other aristocrats, he doesn't throw expensive parties or brag about his wealth. But today he's booked an entire restaurant, and that makes her a little scared. The Duke says that from now on she will live there for the duration of the ball. She agrees with his lordship, and then asks what has become of Madame Gertrude and the Marchioness of Essex. The gentleman replies that disciplinary measures have been taken against Madame Gertrude, and the Marquise is going on leave to improve her health for 6 months, and therefore believes that she will never see them again. At this time, the main character thought that she was very happy, because she thought that he would treat them more harshly. Killian looked at the girl and thought about how pure and generous a village girl is, and how bitch she seduced a man, and he wonders how much of it is true and how much is a lie. The Duke asks the lady if she knows a man named William. Hearing this, she is surprised, and the man asks why she is silent. The girl became interested in whether it was possible to tell him the truth, and she thinks that maybe he won't believe her because at first he behaves normally and then does something like that time on vacation. Rowana recalls that the man asked her to walk her to the mansion and hold her umbrella for her. She agreed and thanked him. Suddenly, that worker left the island, and the store closed. The lady believes that if she tells him the truth, either Melissa will be fired or the publishing house will go bankrupt. The girl says that William is an old friend of hers who came to the city for a few days, and she met him once. The Duke says she was dressed as a man. Hearing this, the young lady was surprised because she realized that he knew about that meeting, and then explained that they just had lunch together, and there was nothing between them. Killian asks if she's saying he's an old acquaintance. In the evening when the girl was taking a bath, she thought that the conversation about William had ruined the whole evening, and none of them had spoken on the way home. Rowana thought that he was angry, and the maid saw the worried mistress and asked if she was feeling unwell. She assured him that everything was fine, and she just thought she had eaten too much at dinner. The main character thought about the fact that Killian found out about her plan, and believes that if this was the reason he would not ask her, as if he wants to check something, because he understands that he would have already taken measures. At this time the gentleman entered the bathroom, and then turned to the maid and ordered her to leave them. The maid quickly ran away, The man touched the girl's face and lifted it a little, and she asked if she had done something wrong. The Duke replies that everything is fine and looks at the girl. Then he lifts her from the bath and kisses her. After this, the main character asks if he loves her, and when he doesn't answer, she asks if he loves her and wants a little. Rowana realizes that she can't help but ask him because she's starting to doubt his love for her. She asks if he's tired of her and if he'll leave her. The Duke says that they know, and at this time the girl thought that he must have misunderstood her reaction in the restaurant. The lady thinks that if she confesses her feelings to him and tells the truth, then maybe and then she turns to him. But the gentleman interrupts her and tells her to be quiet as a mouse and lower than grass, because then he won't get tired of her. When the Duke arrived at the appointed place, he told the man that he was repeating the same thing over and over again, and that he was starting to get tired of it. The gentleman reminds him that he asked him who he works for, and then asks if it is difficult to answer, and suggests that maybe he is dumber than he thought. Killian claims that he played his subordinate well and stole their information little by little, and therefore believes that he is not a fool and asks this or that. The assistant asks for forgiveness and then tells his lordship that the Southerners are smart, and he wonders who would have thought that they would foresee that he would be involved in this. The guy claims that killing him will not give the master anything, and he asks who said that. He will finish him off and waves his gun, and then there was a shot. The man, screaming in pain, says that his leg hurts. His Majesty says he screams like a slaughtered pig and then asks what they should do. The aide says that this could be perceived as a declaration of war. The gentleman claims that they received a gift and it would be rude if they did not reciprocate. The assistant claims that they can still resolve this through negotiations. And the wounded man tells Killian that he can predict his fate, and then says that he will die a terrible death and his tramp will be passed around until she. Having heard this, the gentleman no longer heard anything but fired a shot, and he turns to the man and offers to finish his sentence. The Duke says he has changed his mind, and then orders his body to be cut into pieces and thrown into the harbor. Killian understands that the old man will make a scandal when he sees it. When the man saw this, he turned to his lordship and told him not to report that it was he who shot the spy in the head. Then he asked what the assistant of the Genkos was doing, and he wondered if he was just standing and watching. The old man says that he knows that he is just a dog who has not been taught anything in life, but he understands that this is no excuse to allow his master to dirty his hands with the red liquid. Mr. Sussex says it appears he paid him far more money than he deserves, while Ginoc, Killian's right-hand man, Baron Benedict Sussex, has protected Killian since childhood and was the one who helped the Earl come into the world. Unlike Ginoc, who came from poverty, Benedict was the personification of aristocracy. The Baron says that's why scumbags like him can't be trusted. Ginoc asks the gentleman if he is hinting that he wants to die, and Sussex says that the dog has finally started to bare his teeth. The Duke says that's enough and suggests discussing their next step. The Baron reports that the Glitters firm they secretly opened for financial activities is increasingly arousing suspicion, and believes that the only way to avoid this is to accept the Queen's proposal of marriage. Killian says that he thought this conversation was in the past, and he was the one who was most against it. The Baron agrees with him, and then says that there is another reason why he should accept the offer, and then says that every day they attract more and more attention. The man says that if the Queen finds out that he is organizing a rebellion behind her back, then Miss Filoni's safety will be at risk. The Duke asks if he means to say that he should live like a royal puppy. Sussex objects and explains that he means that the Lord can use this to his advantage and pretend to accept the proposals. The Baron says that he can use the woman the Queen has chosen for him to distract attention from things that people shouldn't know about. The man reminds that he said that he wanted to consolidate his power among ordinary people so that no one would dare tell him what to do, and then asks if he has forgotten about it. Killian says, of course not, and then smiles. Although the Devonshire family was a noble family, with a long history of prestige and wealth, it all came to an end when it began to exert a strong influence on Esselwood. The last Lord Devonshire was a quiet and timid younger brother. He married for convenience, the one chosen for him by his elder sister, the Queen. The following year, immediately after Killian's birth, he left the palace, saying that he had fulfilled his duty. And 10 years later, he burned alive along with his mistress in a mysterious fire. The Duke thought it was too suspicious for an accident, and there were hardly any investigations. And Benedict himself wrote the wedding contract for Devonshire and was at the center of it all. There was a clause in the contract that said that if the lady asked for a divorce because of the gentleman, she would receive alimony, but if the gentleman died in an accident, the lady would receive a pension instead of alimony. Killian thought about the rumors that the Queen had set everything up in order to avoid paying huge amounts of money, and right after his mother received compensation for the damage, she returned to her country, and the Queen gave him a child, abandoned by everyone, many lands and islands. The gentleman thought that she must have wanted to free herself from the feeling of guilt for making her nephew an orphan, and at the same time make sure that he was under her control. The Duke believes that only she did not suspect that the helpless child would grow up and bring a gun to her head. The Baron says that according to the information they received from Lady Chloe, the woman the Queen chose is open to negotiations, and she wants to start her own business and step out of the shadow of her own father. Sussex says that if he helps her, she will benefit from this wedding, and after the wedding, they can give Miss Filona any status she wants. The Duke asks if the man said anything. He replies that they questioned him, and he said that Miss Filone had been having affairs with William Zanin. After a short silence, the gentleman says that he is a little late, and then says that he is simply the head of the publishing house, to whom Miss Filone showed her manuscripts, and asks if Gertrude told him about it. The Baron claims that this is not true, because they have a witness, and then a maid comes in and says that her name is Melissa. The Duke asks if she has been watching her mistress's every move. She claims that she has, and he asks if she has anything to report to him about Miss Philo. The maid shrank and reported that Miss had an affair with Mr. William, and she told her that they had been in love as children, and she ran into him again. Melissa says that the lady thinks that after the wedding, he will leave her and therefore wants to squeeze as much money out of him as possible before leaving with William. The maid reports that the mistress assured her that she dressed as a man. To avoid suspicion, this is somewhat possible. The Duke thought about how he had never allowed traitors to go so far, and his nanny who had sold all the information about him to the Queen when he was 14. His friend who took part in the attempt to kill him while he was studying abroad, and the teacher who only pretended to be his mentor, while all he wanted was to use the Devonshire house for his career, and they all disappeared without a trace, and there were no exceptions. Killian came to the lady and saw that she was sleeping. He stood near the bed, and at that time the girl opened her eyes and asked his lordship how long he had been standing, and then wondered if this was a dream. The man asks in surprise what she is talking about, and the lady explains that he has never watched her sleep before and thinks that it is a dream, and she wants to benefit from it. The Duke asks what she means by this. The girl asks if he will stroke her head until she falls asleep. The gentleman sat down next to her and then hugged her. Rowana says that she is so happy that she does not want to sleep, and in a few minutes she fell asleep. When the lady woke up in the morning, she thought that she was not quite sure, but she had a dream at night, and then she remembers that 5 days had passed since the trip to the restaurant, and the publishing house that wanted to print her book closed, and the manager said that he did not know a person named William Zanin at all. The main character thought that she knew that she would be deceived, and believed that this was a ball of tangled threads and not life, and she became interested in how she could fix all this now. The girl heard someone enter the room, and then said that she was glad that Melissa was here, and asked if she would help her put her hair up. The Duke touches her hair and suggests that she leave it that way because he thinks it suits her better. At this time, the main character thought that his touch was so alien, but also familiar at the same time, and then asks if it was not a dream. Killian asks if she wants it to be like this, and then tells her that he crossed the line last night and kisses her head. At this time, the girl thought that now was the time to tell the truth, but she felt stupid and ashamed, but she thought that she would tell him everything. Rowana turns to his lordship and says that about what he asked her about, and the man interrupts her and says that he has thought about it a lot and realized that it was stupid to keep her only as a mistress for so long. The Duke places a ring on the lady's hand and suggests that from now on she call him Killian. He says that he should have given her this gift earlier, and the girl asks in surprise if he is sure that he wants to give it to her. The man asks if she thinks that he has confused her with someone else. Rowana hugged the guy with delight. He says that since the day she greeted him, a question stuck in his head, and he denied it and was rude to her, but he didn't reject her, but nothing could change his feeling. The Duke explains that all these 5 days he has been thinking about how dear she is to him. The main character says that it all seems like a dream to her, and she is very happy, and she offers to go to her favorite island and spend the summer there together and asks if he will go with her. Killian replies that he needs to finish some business here and will come later, then explains that it will not take much time and offers to wait for him at Rowena's rest home, and then kisses the girl. While walking along the seashore, a boy approaches the lady and calls her madam. Rowana reminds that she asked him not to call her that, but to just call her Rowana. Tommy says it would be rude of him to call a high-status woman by her first name. Tommy is the son of the governor of this island. The main character strokes the boy's head and says that she has already repeated many times that she has no high status, and then asks if the governor sent him. Tom says that he saw the lady himself. This island is located far from the capital and was once quite deserted, but after Killian developed his business, there the dying economy was revived. In gratitude, the islanders are very kind to her as well. Rowana asks the boy why he doesn't go for a walk with her, since she decided to go for a walk because the weather is so wonderful. Tom agrees, and they walk together. At this time, the boy thought that the lady is the most beautiful person in this world, and she is very kind, even to a child like him. But he noticed that sometimes anxiety appears in her eyes. Tom reports that his father said that she is a special person for the Duke, and that she will become someone that cannot even be looked at. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was not what he promised her, and she had been waiting for Killian on this island for 15 days and could not wait. The girl does not understand what he decided, but the boy interrupts her thoughts and asks if she will soon marry the Duke. Rowana asks in surprise if they will get married, and the boy claims that he knows everything. And the reason why his father is so busy these days is preparations for the wedding. Tom says that he heard that the Duke was coming today and then apologizes because it was a surprise, and he let it slip. Hearing this, the lady thanked the boy for telling her this, and then said that they would see each other later, and quickly left. The main character thought that it turns out she has no reason to worry, and she will meet him at the port and cannot wait to meet him. Rowena met Melissa, and the maid asked Miss Rowena in surprise what she was doing there. The lady reports that she heard the Duke was coming, and then saw Killian with another woman whom he was holding by the hand. The main character looked at the gentleman and became interested in who was next to him, because she was shocked, but she understood that she shouldn't jump to conclusions. Rowena looked at the stranger and thought that she was probably a distant relative who was invited to the wedding. Killian says he's glad to see Miss Falone, and then says it's his fiancée in Miss Chloe Aberdeen. The lady says that she is glad to meet you, and at this time the main character feels sick and apologizes, and then says that she probably didn't hear. The girl remembered the conversation between the maids about how the Duke was still in love with his bride, who died 3 years ago. The main character, hearing this, could barely stand on her feet, and it was obvious that she was swaying. The gentleman turns to Miss Falone, and Chloe stops him and says that it is obvious that she is shocked. The Duke orders the maids to take Miss Falona inside, as he feels she is not feeling well. Killian tells the assistant that they are tired from the long journey and then asks if Miss Aberdeen's room is ready. He replies that all the apartments are ready. The Duke turns to the lady and asks her to forgive the bad manners of his mistress, since he believes that she is not educated at all. Chloe says it's hardly a matter of upbringing, and that as a woman she understands her pain. The bride looked at the man and thought that this was the man she would marry, according to a business agreement for mutual benefit. And so she thought when they exchanged letters through their acquaintances. Chloe thought that when she met him in person, her heart changed, and she was worried that her mistress would become the big threat that people described her as. The lady thought that he had not spent a minute to get rid of his mistress, and thought that it was nice because she would get both her father's business and this man. Chloe says that she would like to see the island before heading to the house, and then asks if he will show her. At this time, the main character came to her room and threw all her things around. And when Killian entered, she screamed and told him not to come near. The Duke tells her that the scene she made earlier was too provocative, and then reminds her that he gave her clothes, food, and a roof over her head. The girl screams and says that she doesn't need any of this, and then pushes him away from her and says that she is leaving. The young gentleman asks in surprise where she wants to go, and then grabs her hand. Rowena offers to let her go, and in response he only smiled and thought that she was his pathetic but beautiful lover. Killian announces that his wedding is in 2 weeks, and the girl quietly says that he is the devil and a monster because she considers him a cruel and heartless bastard. Rowena asks why he gave her that ring, and why he acted like he was going to marry her if he wanted to leave her all alone. The gentleman says that he never promised her anything, and he simply gave her a gift, as always. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, and he asks why she is so surprised. The lady says that he knew how she felt, and then claims that she was always honest with him because she loved him. Hearing this, the Duke threw the girl onto the bed and reminded her that she said she loved him, and then offered to prove it. After a few minutes of strong hugs and passionate kisses, he tells the girl to take this as a sign of goodwill and to let her know if she needs more, and then he leaves her money on the bed. Hearing this, the main character laughed, and he asked what was funny. Rowena asks if he ever loved her, but the man only remains silent in response, and then replies that he never did, and explains that he was having fun. A woman knocks on the door and calls Rebecca. The lady opens the door and apologizes, then explains that her son is sleeping. Rose insists that it's not her problem, and then reminds her that she owes rent and asks screaming when she's going to pay, and also wonders if she wants to stay outside in such cold weather with her child. The lady explains that she is very sorry because she was not paid on time at work, and then says that she was going to give her everything today and asks them to wait, and then gives them a bag. The woman says that if next time she delays payment, even by 1 day, she will throw her out. The boy asks his mother what happened. She replies that everything is fine, and then explains that the owner came in to tell her something. Rebecca touched the boy and apologized for the noise waking him up, but he claimed he was just cold. The lady says that he has a temperature again, and therefore thinks that they need to go to Dr. McWood. The main character thought that on that terrible night, her thoughts about death were dispelled by a premonition that had overcome her. And if you think about it, she had not had her period yet. Rowena believes that fate made its move, and her premonition was right, and she was pregnant. Fearing that the Duke would take the child if he found out that he was the father, she changed her name and moved to a city where she had no one. The girl was given an old closet, but it was enough to lie low. Being pregnant, she took on any job that she had never done before. When all the newspapers were writing that Killian Devonshire and Chloe Aberdeen were moving to another country, she gave birth. A child who looked so much like that sweet but hateful man. The doctor says that he must be taking his medication regularly, and the illness will soon pass, and he is happy to report that his health is improving. The main character thanked the doctor because Damien was often sick. The birth was attended by a midwife from the slums, who was called in at the very last minute. and from the moment the umbilical cord was cut, he has suffered from a variety of illnesses. A boy tells his mother that he was praised for taking his medicine, and then asks if she will buy him a toy for it. Rowana says that she will buy it for him as a holiday gift, and it will be very soon. The main character understood that she had little money and thought that she would simply work more in the evenings and find a part-time job. The lady thought that she couldn't stop blaming herself because he wouldn't have had to go through all this if he had been born in good conditions. The doctor gave the boy some candy, and Damien asked his mother if it was okay if he took it. Rowana tells the doctor that he doesn't need to do this and that the fact that he's examining him already means a lot to them. The man says that his nephew is about the same age as Damien and asks to accept it. The woman thanked the doctor and told her son to thank her too. When the lady and her son left, the doctor thought about what he had heard that Rebecca's husband had died in an accident 5 years ago, and the local woman had seen her very sadly and said that she had been rushing from place to place while pregnant before settling there. Macwood thought that he was very worried about her and about Damien. Suddenly, the doctor's assistant opens the door and says that a man has come to see him, and she thinks that he should come out because the man says that he is looking for someone. A gentleman enters the room and asks if he is Dr. Philip McWood. Together with the gentleman, 2 men entered who grabbed the doctor, and their boss sat down and said that he would ask the doctor only once if he knew a blonde with green eyes and almost 30 years old. The man says that her name is Rowena Falone, but most likely she is now using a different name, and also asks if a woman matching this description has ever come to him. At this time, the doctor thought that maybe it was Rebecca, and then said no. The man says that if he meets such and such, he should call this hotel and ask him to come to the phone because he will pay him a good sum. The gentleman says that his name is Zenon Glitters, and they know his name. When Damien saw Aunt Harriet, he was happy, and then he hugged her. The woman asks if the boy slept well last night, and he answers that he did. Harriet asks if he listened well to his mother. Rowana apologizes for leaving her son with her again. The woman assures that everything is fine because her children like to play with him. Harriet is the manager of a textile factory and has been her supporter for 5 years. She tells the boys to go outside. The manager was the one who called the midwife and helped with the work at the factory, and the main character is very grateful to her. Harriet tells Rebecca that she came here when she was pregnant with twins and believes that they are colleagues who gave birth at about the same time, and therefore she does not need to apologize. The woman says that if she needs help with anything, then just let her say so, and she will be happy to help because she appreciates it, and then asks if it's time for her to go because she works the evening shift like yesterday. Rebecca says that she will pick up Damien tomorrow morning and thanks the woman. Harriet says that she repeats again not to thank her every time, and then asks what she thinks about Dr. McWood because she thinks that he is clearly interested in her and asks if the girl noticed this. Rebecca says she was wrong because he is young and single, and she is a single mother. The woman says that they are 1 year apart and then says that she has a son and asks if she thinks he needs a father as a support. Harriet claims that the lady needs a man like Dr. Macwood. Rebecca says that it's time for her to go, and the woman says that she heard her. And at that time, the girl saw that the newspaper fell on the floor and says that she will pick it up. Suddenly, the main character saw a photograph of the Duke, and the newspaper wrote that the Duke of Devonshire from Rockford had returned after parting with his wife, Chloe Aberdeen's infertility. The woman saw the girl and asked what was written there because her face had darkened very much. She replied that there was nothing like that, and then said that she had to go because she would be late. Harriet suggests that she not overdo it. When Rowana ran to work, she thought that nothing would happen because it did not concern her. She remembers Killian's words that he was just having fun and thinks that this person is no longer in her life. The main character thought that if they ran away, she needed something that she could sell and get money. Ravana looked at the ring and remembered that she had not taken the money and left everything she had but kept it in case something terrible happened. and she would give it away and run away to another place. Someone knocking on her door, and it sounded like the voice of her friend, Anna. The girl says that she came to ask if they could go together because they work the same shift, and when she looked at her room, she asks if she was robbed. The main character replies that she was just looking for something, and then says that she is already leaving. Rowana thought that 5 years had already passed, and perhaps he lived in another country, but if he wanted to find her, he would have already done so. The main character understands that he will not appear at her door after so many years simply because he is divorced, and therefore believes that there is no point in being afraid. Anna saw the ring and couldn't understand where such a poor woman got such an expensive ring from. Hearing this, the girl got scared. Anna accidentally pushed a glass, which fell on the floor and broke. The lady says that she will go for a broom because she thinks that her partner can get hurt and therefore suggests that she stay put. The girl explains to Rebecca that she didn't want to and then reaches for the ring to steal it. The main character asks the girl if she got hurt, and Anna replies that she wants to make amends to her and can help her clean up, while at the same time she hid the ring in her pocket. After a while, the shock of the news from the newspaper passed, and soon everything was back to normal. Only Rowana worked more and was able to buy Damien a present for Christmas. As expected, Damien often spent the night at Harriet's. Late at night, the main character came to the manager and asked if her son had behaved well. The woman took the sleeping boy in her arms and said that he was a very well-behaved boy. Rowena thanked the woman because she does a lot for her, but she hardly gives anything in return. Harriet tells her not to say that and then asks her to be careful. When the girl left, the woman became interested in who Damien's father was and is sure that he is very handsome if the son looks like his father. And she believes that if he had not had to work so hard, if he had been with Rebecca, Damien would not have been so lonely. Suddenly, the woman heard someone knocking on her door, and she wondered who it could be at such a late hour. And when she opened the door, she saw the doctor and asked what brought him here so late. Philip apologizes and then asks if Rebecca was there. The woman replies that the lady just left. Hearing this, the doctor says that he should have come earlier, and the woman asks in surprise, "What's wrong?" The man reports that some time ago a man came to his clinic, and as it turned out, he was looking for Rebecca, but he was afraid that he would be followed and could not report it right away. The doctor says that the man said that her real name is Rowena Falone. Harriet asks if he thinks the man is Damien's father. He says it's out of the question because he doesn't look like a boy at all, and his name is Zenos Glitters. The woman asks Glitters if he is the one who runs the legal gambling house. The man replies that at first glance yes, and he heard that he has expanded his business. The doctor says that through underground activities such as unlicensed lending and the sale of illegal alcohol, and he believes that people like them should not get involved with him. Harriet wonders why such a man would be looking for Rebecca. He replies that he doesn't know, but asks her to tell her to be careful and that he will be coming to their house to examine Damien. When the doctor left, the woman thought that she was confused. And if he was not Damien's father, then could he be a debt collector who was trying to track down Rebecca? The woman thought that she needed a weapon and then opened the door. The lady reports that she is missing, and apparently she asked for next month's payment in advance and disappeared without a trace, and then asks if she knows where the girl could have gone. Rebecca replies that she doesn't know because they weren't that close. Harriet reports that she heard that she lived with a man, but she left with him, and the police have already lived, but thinks they will quickly be forgotten. Rebecca says she hopes she's okay, and the woman says she's been chatting too much and has almost forgotten that the doctor asked her to give her the candy. The main character sitting next to her son's bed, holding candies in her hands, thought that they were for Damien, and remembered that she told him there was no need for this, but the doctor was a very good person and always remembered them. Suddenly, the girl saw a note which said that it was Philip McWood, and he knew that this note took her by surprise. The doctor says that he will be brief and that she is being watched, and he asks her to be careful. At this time the mister came to the woman, and she surprised asks if he is Glitters, and then says that Rebecca has a debt, and he probably came to catch her. The gentleman says that he must say everything much differently, and says that he wants to make her a good offer. At this time the main character ran to Harriet, and when the woman opened the door, she asked in surprise what she was doing, and also wondered if she had run here from her home. The girl assures that everything is fine, and then asks if someone came to her and threatened her or asked where she lives. The woman says she doesn't understand what the lady is talking about, and then says nothing happened. She asks what's wrong and what's wrong with her. Rebecca explains that everything is fine, and she just needed to make sure. Harriet asks if her house has become too small for the two of them, and thinks that it is old and unsafe and full of alcoholics and gamblers. Then she says that she knows someone who rents out a place not far from them for a very good price. The manager says that this price should be about the same as what she pays now, and if she wants, she can put in a good word for her. At this time, the main character thinks that the place where Harry lives is much safer than theirs, and if the rent is about the same as what she pays now, then she cannot ask for better conditions. The girl says that she appreciates it, and then thanks him, and refuses because she thinks that they will soon have to move to another city. Rebecca says that if a stranger asks her questions, she asks her to say that she doesn't know anything and then leaves. At this time, the woman asks the gentleman if he is sure that Rovana will be safe. He answers that he is absolutely sure and offers to name any amount he wants and considers it as payment for looking after his woman. Glitter says that she doesn't need this money, and she will do it only because he is the one Rowena needs, and then explains that all she wants is to make her happy. Hearing this, the Duke was surprised, and then said that it did not concern her, and left wishing her good night. At this time, the woman thought that Killian Devonshire Rockford is a man she knows only from the newspapers, and is Damien's biological father, and she does not understand how she did not guess before, because the boy is his copy. Glitter understands that Rowena doesn't want to deal with him, but a child who is often sick like Damien needs to live in better conditions than where he is now. The woman understands that she can tell from just one look that he is in love with her, but she is interested in whether he himself realizes it or not. The assistant asks his lordship what they should do, and also wonders if they should find Miss Filoni. The Duke replies that there is no need for that, and then asks if they found the one who sold the ring on the black market. Geenock reports that it was a woman, and it seems she stole him, and they are following her, and then asks if the gentleman is sure that he does not need to meet with Miss Filoni now. At this time the Duke thought about Harriet, and he was grateful to her that she became friends with Rowena when she had nowhere to go. But that's all, and she said not to make Rowena unhappy. Killian finds it funny, considering that up until this moment, the woman didn't even know Rowena's real name. And then he asks what's wrong with Chloe Aberdeen. The assistant says that she disappeared after signing the divorce agreement, and according to their agent, she went to the countryside to recover. The Duke says it's for her own good. Chloe says that since they were married, it would be nice to be faithful spouses. She thought about it and just laughed about it, but it was just the beginning. And despite her ability that it would be easy to work with Chloe, Aberdeen proved to be quite stubborn. Killian realized that she had a new goal to seduce him, and she slipped into his bedroom every time she had the opportunity. The gentleman recalled that there was a time when he thought that she was forcing herself to do this because of an heir that he did not need, but he felt disgusted as if he had been cursed. The man understood that it was not about Chloe, and he reacted this way to any woman who tried to seduce him. When her attempts to get his attention failed, she made no secret of her love affairs, but when Chloe realized that her last desperate attempt to provoke him had not worked, the lady reminded the Duke that she was his wife and asked how he could insult her like that. And on the last day of their life together, she was found in a bathtub full of cold water and with her wrists cut. Luckily, she didn't lose too much of the red fluid, and her wounds weren't life-threatening. On the day his wife opened her eyes, he gave her 2 documents and offered her to choose between a pass to a mental hospital or a divorce application. The Duke said it was okay if she didn't want a divorce, but he couldn't just leave her when she had clearly lost her mind. Killian said that if she couldn't make a decision now, he would give her time to think and she should let him know through a lawyer. Chloe asks if he was so cruel out of spite. Hearing this, the Duke thought that he had never remembered this name in the last 5 years, and then asked what kind of nonsense this was. And the woman screams and tells him not to try to deny it, because sometimes he calls her in his sleep and then asks if he hid her somewhere. Chloe claims that for the sake of his all-powerful mistress, the Duke of Devonshire remains pure. He asks if she is having a paranoid attack or if she has truly gone mad, and then leaves, closing the door behind him. Killian thought that these ridiculous accusations did not even deserve an answer, and he himself did not understand how he fell. The Duke thought that it was a curse that was tightening around his neck and swallowing up his whole life. The young gentleman recalls his first meeting with Falone and believes that ever since that damned name surfaced, he has suffered from endless attacks of dizziness and headaches. The man realized that the memories came flooding back like a wave, breaking through a dam. Rovana, while at the station, thought that she was really going to the capital and believed that everything would be fine with her and that she would not be left alone there. The girl realized that this was a third-class compartment, and when she went inside, she saw the gentleman and said that she was apologizing because she thought she must have mixed up the compartment. At this time, the main character stumbled over the Duke, but he still stood up and caught her. He says that he should be careful and asks if she is lost. Rowena explains that she is looking for a third-class compartment, and at this time, I thought that she was just a little shocked by how cute he is. The Duke rang the bell, and a man came who asked how he could help him. The gentleman offered to escort the lady to her compartment. The worker asks the lady to follow him. The girl looks back and says that she is equal to Falona. Standing on the platform, the Duke says that he is Killian Devonshire. In the restaurant, the main character says that someday she would like to sit in a restaurant on the coast and enjoy a great meal on the table and someone she loves in front of her. The Duke says that it is a beautiful dream and then asks what her favorite flowers are. She replies that it is Edelweiss and that the country where she comes from is full of them. The girl says that it is a very calm and beautiful place. However, she has never described it until now, and this is her first time going to the city, so she is very excited and nervous. The gentleman says that she should adapt well to city life and then asks how old she is. The lady replies that she is 20 and asks how about him. He says that he is 28. The girl is surprised to hear this and says that she would never have thought that he looks younger. Rowena asks the Duke what his favorite fruits are and says that she likes raspberries. Killian says he has to go and it was nice talking to her, Miss Philo, and then leaves. The Duke thought that Rowena Falone was a very attractive girl, but she was too young for him, and he thought there were too many reasons why she was not right for him. The man thinks that she is a 20-year-old child, and it is obvious that the girl is not even from a middle-class family and thinks that this should be their first and last meeting. Killian thought that even in the carriage on the way home, after he got off the train, and after he arrived at the townhouse, he couldn't get her out of his head, and the remnants of conscience that were still there didn't last long. The young master told his housekeeper that she was a girl with blonde hair and green eyes who had recently gone to the capital and that she should find her for him. The gentleman remembered that when he received the answer, he was shocked because the woman told him that she was a high-class courtesan who used her blonde hair as a weapon, and now she is on the run because she got into huge debts. The housekeeper asks if she should ask someone to transfer her here. The main character says that it is a very calm and beautiful place. However, she has never left it before, and this is her first time going to the city, so she is very excited and nervous. Hearing this, the Duke thought that she had an impressive performance, and he did not understand why he could not get her out of his head. Killian tells the maid that this is not necessary, and she can go. Gertrude turns to his lordship and informs him that this woman looks like the late Lady Angela, and since she now seems to be feeling better, she could be of use to him, as she believes that the queen will undoubtedly try to arrange a marriage again. At this time, the gentleman thought that he wanted to kill her because she had deceived him again. However, he believed that if he could use her to avoid trouble, he did not want to participate. The man thinks that one day he will see her in his bed and may lose all interest in her, and then he says that it is a good idea, but thinks that first she should suffer a little more. The assistant asks his lordship why he does not see Miss Filoni again. Giennoch reports that after a long investigation, they found a clue, and reports that she settled in a secluded town with a couple of factories. They tracked down a suspicious doctor, and his name is Philip McWood. The doctor led them to the house of a woman who works in a textile factory, and she rented a dilapidated villa and has been living there for some time. And they also found this ring on the nearby black market. Hearing this, the Duke thought that even if she had been unfaithful, she would still have remained his mistress. And if she had taken the money he had given her, she would not have had to work for the next 10 years. At this time, the gentleman thought that the splitting main pain arose sharply and pulsatingly that pierced his heart. The assistant informs his lordship that they have arrived at the hotel, and at this time the Duke thinks that he is lost in useless thoughts. The servant tells the master that he found the woman who pawned the ring, and she was found dead. Callian quickly mounted his horse and rode away. He thought that it was one of two things, and either the queen had something or there was an enemy inside, and whatever it was, Rowena was in danger. At this time, the boy asks his mother where she was. She explains that she just needed to talk to Harriet about something. Rowena asks her son to listen, and then explains that they may soon have to go somewhere far away. Hearing this, the boy is surprised and asks if this means that he will no longer see Aunt Harriet and her sons. Suddenly, the main character heard a knock on the door and tells Damien to go to his room because she thinks it must be the hostess and asks him to come inside. Rowana looked out the window and thought that this couldn't be, and even if he divorced his wife, because she couldn't conceive, all he had to do was find another woman and get married. The girl believes that he has no reason to look for her because he does not love her. At that moment, the door opened, and a gentleman entered the room. The lady says that this cannot be. Killian says that he understands that for her, he is like a demon or a reaper of death, and then claims that she lived a miserable life. The girl asks in surprise why he is here, and he suggests starting all over again. The main character says that the last time they stood out, he threw money at her and asks if he forgot about throwing it. The man says he threw her out, and so it's his job to get her back, and then he lights a cigarette. She screams and tells him not to smoke. At this time, the boy opens the door and says that it doesn't look like the owner, and then asks who is there. Hearing the child's voice, the gentleman was surprised, and the lady invited him to go back into the room. The boy closed the door. Rowena screams and says that he was getting out of his house, and at that time she thought that he saw Damien's face and thinks that he realized that the child looks like him. Killian smiled and said that he didn't expect much honesty from her, but he never thought that she now had baggage. The Duke says that she must have met another man during their breakup, and the girl asks him not to come closer. The man grabbed her face and called her name, and then asked when she became so impudent. The main character explains that he is intruding and cannot expect kindness from her. Killian asks if it's because of that man, and then leans down and kisses her on the lips. However, the girl pushes him away, and he smiles. The gentleman says that it is her choice, and then claims that she will become his lover again, and also asks whether she would prefer to languish on the street with her child. Rowana asks why he is doing this after all these years, and pushes him. She reminds him that he once left her, and asks what else he wants from her. The Duke wonders why she is asking him this, and says that he himself would like to know why. Killian says that he was going to leave after he paid a woman named Harriet, because he didn't need to waste time on Rowana, because he was just annoyed that his ex-woman was living in poverty. The gentleman says that the woman betrayed him and had an affair and is now the mother of another man's child. He does not understand why he still does not want to let her go. The Duke says he doesn't need a reason, and he's doing it because he wants to. He says he'll give her time to pack and will come for her tomorrow at noon. And when he returns, it's best for the child to be here too. After this conversation, the girl fell to the floor, and the child asks his mother if she is okay and wonders who this person is. The girl explains that this is her old friend, and then asks if he remembers how she told him about moving, and says that he wants to help them. The woman says that they will live together with him because he is very rich, and Damien will be able to get all the candies and toys he wanted. Hearing this, the child screams and objects, saying that he wants to be only with her, and then asks if this man made her cry. The main character understands that there was a time when Killian Devonshire was everything to her, and when he loved, and her love for him in return meant the whole world to her. However, the girl understands that the one who stopped her life from dying was the child that grew inside her, and not Killian. After all, the Duke finished her off, but Damien brought her back to life. Rowan says that even if they live with someone, all she has is her son, and he is the only person she loves more than life, and then hugs him. The next day, the women ask the main character why she is leaving so suddenly. She replies that she does not know what to say and apologizes because she cannot stay here until they find a replacement for her, especially when everyone is still in shock from Anna's disappearance. The woman gave the girl flowers and said that they prepared them for her because she had worked until today. Harriet says she's sad that she's leaving suddenly, but thanks Rebecca for deciding to do what no one else wanted to do all this time. The girl says that they treated her well all this time and asks how they knew that she was leaving. The manager says that she said it and then says that they need to talk and grabs her hand. The surprised lady asks the manager what it is. The woman explains that she told him where she lives. Rowana asks what she means. Surprised Harriet says that the Duke is the biological father and asks if that is true. The woman says that she is sorry that she could not do what she asked her to do, and then says that she has every right not to forgive her, but she believes that her son needs a better environment, and she can say that the Duke loves her. Hearing these words, the main character shuddered and thought that she was sure that Harriet thought that she was doing the right thing because she did not know what he did to her. The girl knows that Harriet cares about Damien, as if he were her own son, and she cannot be offended by him, but she believes that he does not love her. Rebecca tells her not to apologize because she has no other feelings for her except gratitude, and says that she has one last request, and then asks if she can send this letter, and says that this address belongs to a man named Jeremy Dish. Harriet says that Jeremy Dish is a famous author, and the girl says that he is her uncle on her mother's side, and the man who raised her, and asks to let him know that she misses them very much. Ravana says that if everything is okay, she asks to write the address on the envelope herself, and the woman says that she prays that her life will be filled with nothing but happiness from now on. The main character thought that they wouldn't let her go like before, and she needed to protect Damien. However, she understands that if the Duke finds out that he is the father, he won't leave her alone. The girl believes that her son will remain in a vast abandoned castle where no one will be near him, and she understands that she needs to escape before this happens, and it doesn't matter what exactly. The man reports that the woman was poisoned, and judging by the blood on her upper lip, however, he believes that it looks like she struggled before she was forced to lower her throat. The gentleman says that based on all the available evidence, the culprit was most likely someone she did not know, and then he says that right now, the only suspect is the man she lived with before her death, because their neighbors said they saw them running away together. The Duke reports that this man will also soon be found dead, and suggests telling the magistrate that an unknown man left the woman's body in front of the medical examiner's office. Killian is curious about who is targeting Rowena and is acting very devious. He thinks they must have killed Anna to send a warning, but knows that this is not what the Queen would want. The Duke believes that in this case there is only one suspect he can think of. The assistant informs his lordship that Mr. Zanuck has gone to fetch Miss Falone, and that they will soon arrive at the railway station, and he has reserved a separate cabin for the child. The gentleman says that it is good, and suggests keeping it out of his sight. He thought about how his head started throbbing again. Mr. Zanuck turns to the girl and says that it was a long time ago, and then informs her that the carriage has arrived and asks her to go with him since his grace is waiting for her. Rowana asks if she can go to the house first and pick up the luggage. The man says that he wants her to leave everything behind except these clothes. At this time, the main character thought that of course he knows, because he always does everything his own way. Xenok says that anyone can tell about her son, that he is the Duke's child, and he was shocked when he saw him. The main character asks where Damien is now, and asks to tell her that nothing happened to him. The man says that he has thought about it and believes that it would be better for his grace to judge for himself, and he has not said anything yet. Xenok claims that the young gentleman is safe, and he has prepared all the conditions for his stay. The girl says that she wants to see everything with her own eyes. He calms her down and promises that her son will be fine. Rowana asks how she can trust him, and at that moment, she thinks about him being an illegitimate child. After all, he is a boy who can co-opt the Devonshire family tree, and she understands that Zanuck will never accept Damien kindly. The man tells Miss Falone that she can trust him, and then tells her that the young gentleman is the Duke's son, so that makes him someone he should serve as well. Zanuck offers the woman to take it because it will cover her travel expenses, and he will not tell the Duke about it. 5 years ago, when everyone looked down on her because she was a mistress, he was the only person who treated her like a human being. The main character agrees, and then says that she has a request, and she asks not to tell the Duke that Damien is his son. The man asks why, because he thinks that if he keeps it a secret, nothing good will come of it. The lady says that she will tell him about it herself when she is ready, and asks him to promise her. At this time, Zanuck remembered that 5 years ago he had imagined her as nothing more than a beautiful doll existing to satisfy the Duke's desires, and she had always had that look. The man says that he cannot give her much time because he believes that the truth will come out sooner or later, and then says that he will allow her to see her son for a while. The gentleman says that he will make sure that the employees keep quiet about this. Rowana asks Damien if everything is okay, and the boy happily asks his mother to look because they said that all these toys are for him, and the clothes too, and then asks if his mother thinks it suits him. The lady says that it suits him very well, and at that moment she thought that this child must have been deprived of many things that he desired. The girl thought that she could not imagine how hard it was for him to give up his desires. Damien asks his mother if it is right that he accepts all this. She says that he is doing everything right, and then kisses him. Xenok turned to Miss Falone, and she said that she had to leave now. The child asked where she was going, and also wondered if she was going to this person. Rowana explains that she will be in another cabin, and they will see him when they get off the train, and asks him not to worry. Hearing this, the boy objects, and says that he does not want her to go to him, because she scares him, and feels that he wants to take his mother away. At this time, the main character thought that she should remain strong and remain in Killian's favor. The lady turns to Mr. Zanuck, and the man says that the nanny will keep an eye on him. The nanny came up to the boy and asked him to calm down, and then said that she would prepare him a delicious snack. Damien screams and says that he doesn't need these toys and clothes, and he wants to go with his mother. Rowana approaches the mister and tells him that she hopes he will take care of her son. At this time, the main character thought that she felt like she was on the way to execution. Zanuck informs his lordship that Miss Falone is here. When the lady entered, she sat down quietly in her corner. The Duke asks if this is her way of protesting. She objects and explains that she simply did not want to disturb him by sitting too close. Killian says that she overestimates herself because she does not have such an influence on him. but he believes that there is one thing for which he should praise her. The Duke says that she didn't take that boy with her, and he wasn't sure that she could do it. The girl asks why he was looking for her if she has no influence over him, and also wonders why he broke into her house, only to bring her and her son back to Rockford when they lived in peace. Hearing this, the man slammed his hand on the wall, and then reminded her that he told her that he was simply returning his trash. And at this time the main character thought that she should not be afraid of him, but should protect Damien. The girl pushes the guy away and asks if he will be kind enough to leave her again, and also wonders how long he will hold her son hostage and when he will stop controlling her life. At this time the man kisses the lady, and then smiles and tells her to stop being so provocative, and suggests that she keep her mouth closed. The main character wipes her lips with her hand and says that if he is not going to answer her, now she will go to bed. Hearing this, the gentleman was surprised, and Rowana said that she had so many thoughts that she could not sleep last night and was tired. The Duke smiled and then said that he should do as he pleases. The main character made her bed and remembered that when she left, her uncle asked her to wait a second and asked if she really needed to leave. Uncle says that she doesn't even know what she will encounter in the capital, and he says that an innocent, naive girl like her can be easily used for one's own purposes. The girl thanked Jeremy for his concern and then said that she has a friend who lives in the capital and therefore asks him not to worry. Ravana says that she is not a child anymore and wants to experience new things and achieve her dream on her own. Uncle says that if she wants this, then let her accept his blessing, since he cannot force her to stay, but she must promise him one thing. Jeremy says that if she has problems or needs help, then she should not be afraid to return to him, and it does not matter when and what she did, because he will always be on her side. The main character remembered that when she was in a difficult situation, she did not understand why she did not ask him for help. Then, after all, when her friend betrayed the girl and left a debt in her name, and when Killian abandoned her and left, and when Damien was born, Ravana believes that there were many opportunities to contact him because she never doubted and knew that he was on her side. The girl thought that she just didn't want him to see that she had failed and couldn't take care of herself. However, she believed that he was like a father to her, and her stupid pride was the cause of it all. When the lady woke up, she saw the Duke next to her, and he was whispering in her ear that she should stay put if she was not going to arouse him. The main character thought about how 5 years ago, when they had sexual intercourse, he always left immediately after saying that he was busy. The lady does not understand why he is doing this now, after so many years, but she thinks that it does not matter because there is no point in thinking about it, and she just wants to go back to sleep and forget about everything for today. At the Devonshire estate, the butler meets them and informs them that they have prepared Miss Filoni's old room. The Duke orders that she be given a room next to his. Hearing this, the butler objects and says that this room is for the Duchess, but at present it is not occupied. Hearing this, the main character thought that if her room was next to his, it would be more difficult for her to see Damien. Rowana says that she will prefer her old room. Hearing this, the gentleman frowns and states that she will use the room next to his. At this time, the postman brought the writer a letter and insisted that he should give it to him personally. Jeremy says it's a publishing company trying to speed up his work and offers to send him back. The boy insists that he cannot do this and then gives him a letter. Zenos tells the lady that the Duke plans to leave the mansion in a few days, at dawn, because he has questions about taxes and property management. He believes that at that time, it will be easier for her to see the young master. Rowana asks if any of the workers have seen Damien. The man replies that few have seen him, including him and the nanny, but they are all sworn to secrecy, and so tells her not to worry. Zenos shows the lady her son's room, and when the girl went inside, she saw that the boy was fast asleep. The man reports that the Duke has no children from a previous marriage, and believes that if he acknowledges the young master Damien as his biological son, he will likely be named heir. The girl asks what will happen after this, and she wonders if he will grow up as a duke in this isolated castle. Xenos claims that every child has the right to know who his real father is, and the duke should know about his son's existence, because he believes that he deserves it one way or another, and suggests telling everyone about the young master little by little. The man says that when his lordship stops avoiding Damien, she will be able to tell him the truth. Hearing this, the main character thought that this will not happen, because she is going to run away before it happens. The maid, the next morning, says that her name is Joanna Jude, and she is her new personal maid. Rowana says it's nice to meet her, and asks if she knows a girl named Melissa, and then says she worked there last time she was there, and she has brown eyes and freckles. Joanna says that this maid left shortly after she came here, and she heard that she received a large allowance and returned to her hometown, and thinks that she works on her parents' farm. The main character says that she understands, and says that Melissa took care of her then, and if she ever writes to her, let her send her greetings. The maid tells the mistress that she has something to tell her, and then opens the door and shows many boxes with gifts. Seeing this, the girl was in a stupor and asks what all this is. Joanna says that all these gifts are for her, and the whole capital knows that she has returned. The maid reports that the shoes are from the house of the Earl of Wales. The pearl necklace is from Baroness Somerset, and this coat is from a famous boutique. Hearing this, the main character thought that 5 years ago, these same nobles called her dirty and looked at her with disgust, and now they send postcards and gifts because they think that she is in a better position than before. The girl thought that even if she does not become a duchess, she will be an influential figure in the Devonshire house. However, she understands that if the duke gets tired of her, he will throw her out again. Rowana tells them to send these gifts back and tells the maid not to touch anything. Joanna informs the lady that there is a letter for her that has arrived without gifts from someone named Harriet Dickinson. The lady tells her to leave it here because she will read it separately. The woman writes that the twins miss Damien terribly, and she misses her too, and she is also worried about her. Harriet writes that she heard that the lady is looking for a tutor for Damien, and she is also worried about the education of the twins, since it is difficult to find a teacher who will teach both at once. A woman writes that she heard that one of her favorite writers lives in the area, and he is a friend of a friend. So she asked him, and he says that he is looking for a job because he does not make enough from his works. Harriet asks what she thinks about hiring him as Damien's tutor. After reading this, the main character thought that this was another letter from her uncle, which only she knew about. Rowana thought that in Killian's absence, she might see Damien much more often, and Damien's place in this house was rather ambiguous. The landlady's child is not biologically related to the Duke. He has been locked in his room and can barely go anywhere else. Damien asks his mother if she has been to the lake in front of the castle. She replies that she has been several times, and he asks if he can visit just this once. Hearing this, the main character thought that her son knows that he doesn't have much freedom here, and that he is a small child for whom she felt sorry. Mom replies that they can only do it for a short time. When they went outside, the girl thought that everything must be fine, because it was only now that dawn had broken, and she had put a hat on the child. The lady saw the lake and thought that it had always been so beautiful. And when she was his lover, he had come there several times, but it was a small, unattractive lake, and she had seen much cleaner lakes in the country. Rowana was amazed at how beautiful it could be when she looked at it with her child. The boy says he is very excited and likes that. It is just the two of them here. He says he wants to swim, but he is not allowed, and asks if that is true. Mom says that's true, but soon he will be able to swim wherever he wants, and then says that her maternal uncle will soon be moving in with them, and his name is Jeremy Dish. Damien asks if it's true, and if they can leave. Their mom says that she promises him that, and he will swim in big lakes with much more freedom. The main character believes that when Killian returns, she should ask him if she can hire her uncle as a mentor for Damien. The girl thought that no one except her knows him as Roderick de Fonsa, and therefore believes that everything should be fine. When the lady returned to her room, the gentleman asked where she had been. At such a late hour, she replied that she had gone out for a walk because she felt a little out of breath. Killian asks why she didn't tell anyone. The girl says she's sorry and insists it won't happen again. Rowana says that they just got back from their trip, and the last thing they need right now is to worry about something like this. When he touched the girl, he thought that she had become very thin. And for the last 5 years, Killian had felt as if he had an empty hole in his chest. Although later the Duke realized that Ravana did not take the money he gave her, and he was not going to look for her to give it to her. Thinking about his affair, he was so upset that if he saw her again someday, he might not be able to resist strangling her to death. When Killian met the girl again, he felt not anger at all, and the emotion he felt was so complex that it could not be simply described as sympathy or tenderness. The gentleman wondered what if she had lived a good life, and would he really not feel anything for her? Then, however, at that time there was no point in thinking about it because he needed her. Killian thought that he had left her behind forever, but that was far from the truth, and the only thing that worries him is Miss Falone. And then he says that he has decided to leave the past in the past. The lady asks him in surprise what he means. He tells her that the girl can see the child and can go for a walk around the castle if she wants, but only with a guard at a certain time. Rowana asks if he's sure. The Duke asks if she thought he didn't know she went to see her son while he was gone, and then tells her that as long as he doesn't see him, it's okay. Killian says that tomorrow he is going to set up a trust fund for her, and all she has to do is listen to a lawyer and sign the papers. The Duke says that from now on, if she needs anything, she should talk to him directly or through the maid. The main character asks why he is so generous, and then says that she does not need a trust fund because he already does enough for her. The man says he does this because he needs her, and then he says he didn't know she likes lakes, and as soon as everything calms down, they'll go boating. Ravana wondered how much time had passed since he told her this last time, and she knew that he kept his promise because he took her for a ride on the boat. The girl realizes that he dined with her every day and did not force her to sleep with him in exchange for his generosity. The lady became interested in what he was thinking about because she would have been happy to look at what was going on in his head. The Duke tells Miss that there is a present waiting for her at home. She is surprised to hear this, and then says that he has given her enough, and she would prefer that he let her see Damien more often. Killian says he thinks he's given her enough freedom. The woman says he only allows her to see her son at designated times, and then claims he's still little and needs his mother's care. The man asks if this means she wants to be with him all day, and then says that he has 2 nannies and a team of servants who serve him at all times of the day. Rowana claims that she is his mother and the only one who truly cares for him. She remembered that this little child helped her survive in the most difficult moment of her life when she wanted to end it all. The lady remembered when he first screamed, and when he took his first steps, although he kept falling, and when he first called her mom and threw himself into her arms. These were the moments that made her the happiest when she didn't even hope for it. The main character says that he is her everything, and the only ray of hope that supports her in this life. Hearing this, the man hugged the girl and told her to calm down and not cry. When Rowana hugged the Duke, she realized that he was warm, and she shouldn't let his warmth fool her, because she knows that he can switch in a second depending on his mood. The girl knows that he dragged her to the very bottom when she was the happiest, and this warmth is nothing more than a whim. But if he wants her to be fragile, and then says that she will behave well, and thinks that then he will use it to his advantage. The main character asks if he will allow her to see her child more often. Killian suggests returning to the castle, as her gift is waiting for her. The lady thought that in recent days he has been constantly bringing her gifts, and these are dress decorations or flowers. Suddenly, Melissa opened the door and the main character thought that she was the gift he was talking about. The maid informs that she has been rehired, and that from now on, she and Joan will take care of her. The mistress embraces the girl and says that she is so happy to see her because she heard that she has returned back to her city. Rowana asks if she was forced to come back and then reveals that she told Joan that she missed her. Hearing this, the maid remembered the man's words that she needed to be told one thing, that Miss Filoni had an affair with a man named William Zenon. Melissa said that she can't do it anymore, and the butler asked if she wanted to leave now after all she did, and claims that she played the role of a faithful servant according to his instructions perfectly. However, the maid left and assured herself that Miss Rovana was fine, since she was the Duke's favorite. Melissa ritually told herself this every time she felt guilty. That is until 5 years later, when she received a letter from Joan. The maid noticed how thin and exhausted she was. It was hard to believe that she was known as an incredible beauty 5 years ago, and she heard that she now had a child. Melissa thought that it was all her fault, and if only she hadn't lied about it. The mistress turns to the maid and says that her face has turned blue, and then asks if she feels well. At this time, Melissa thought that the lady was still kind to her, but she thought that it didn't seem like she knew anything, and she didn't know what happened 5 years ago and why she was disposed of in such a cruel way. The maid thought that she had to confess and had to tell her everything and ask for forgiveness. Melissa tells the lady that she has something to tell her, but at that moment, Baron Sansex enters the room and asks how he can help her. The gentleman says that he just spoke with a lawyer and he needs to discuss the trust fund with her. And when he saw Melissa, he was surprised, and the maid was scared. Rowana asks the maid what is wrong because she sees that she is shaking. Melissa apologizes and then says that she is not feeling well. The main character says that the long journey must have exhausted her and suggests that she go and rest since they will meet tomorrow morning. When Melissa left the room, she thought that she was worthless because she did not understand how she could expect forgiveness after everything she had done. The maid doesn't understand what to do now because she can't look her mistress in the eyes. Janak tells the maid to follow him as his lordship wants to see her. At this time, the Baron tells the lady that they will act as agreed, and if she has any questions, then she should not hesitate to ask them. The lady says that he is a busy man, and there is no need to worry so much about her. The Baron says he is worried because the lady is a very important person to the Duke, but it is surprising because she returned after being exiled, and now the Duke wants to create a trust fund for her. Sussex asks her if she thinks they live in such an unpredictable world, and he thinks it's not too big a problem, and then asks if she could walk around the room with him. The gentleman reports that this is a portrait of Lady Harias, and that she was the Duke's great-aunt. The lady says she is beautiful. The man says that all those who are directly related to the Devonshire bloodline are known for their attractiveness, regardless of gender. The Baron reports that when Lady Harias left them, she was about her age, and she married the Duke's great-uncle. He was from another country, who came as a member of the delegation, and fell in love with her at first sight, but she didn't want to marry him, and he heard that she already had a lover. But less than a year after the wedding, she fell into eternal sleep. The man reports that this was discovered after she got married, because she was pregnant by her lover, and she had a miscarriage, and the lover was hastily executed. And then the Baron invites her to see the rest, and shows her a portrait of Count William, who was a distant relative, but they were close, and he died in the arms of his secret mistress. Another portrait was of Lady Elizabeth, and she was expected to marry a royal, but she fell in love with a commoner and jumped off a cliff to her death. Sussex shows a portrait of the late Duke of Devonshire, who was his lordship's father, and he is sure the lady knows that he died in a terrible accident that happened to his actress mistress with whom he was living at the time. At this time, the main character thought that every person he spoke about died a tragic death because of love. The man asks if she knew that his lordship's middle name is Maximilian, in honor of his mistress, and that is why his lordship never even mentions his middle name, and then asks if she could imagine naming her son after his mistress. The Baron says that if she looks at the history of this house, it won't be such a shock because in their blood lies a curse that leaves room in their hearts for only one person. The man takes the curtain and asks if she can guess who it is. He tells her it is his lordship's late bride, to whom he was engaged before she was born. Sussex says that he wants only one thing, for his lordship to be happy. That's why he shows her this portrait, because he believes that a relationship cannot be built on deception. The Baron hopes that she understood at least a fraction of the whole truth. The main character asks Melissa to bring her some sleeping pills, because she couldn't sleep at all. The maid asks in surprise if she should bring it again, and then claims that she has been here for a whole week and that the mistress takes sleeping pills almost every day. The maid claims that this is true and hopes that the Duke will return soon, because she believes that the lady is not so easy and he has gone somewhere and this cannot be done. Melissa looked at Miss and wondered if everything was okay with her. When the girl was sleeping, he felt that someone touched her, and when she opened her eyes, she saw his lordship. He asks if he woke her up, and then asks for forgiveness because he didn't want to. At this time, the main character thought that she would not allow him to fool her again, but she realized that no matter how many times she told herself this, some part of her wanted to believe the opposite. Rowana realizes that now everything has fallen into place, and she has learned why he decided to return to her after what happened, because she knows that he was attracted to the shell of the woman he loved. The lady turns to the gentleman and says that while he was gone, she thought about what she really felt and realized that these 5 years that she lived without him were full of sadness. The girl says that she missed him very much and then hugs him and thinks that from that day on, their unreliable relationship turned into something completely different. Rowena openly admitted her defeat, and Killian in turn became more gentle than ever. Every night they went to bed together, and in the morning after bed, freshly picked flowers with a ribbon were waiting for her. Every day, famous jewelers and tailors came to the Duke's estate, and Rowena's beauty blossomed again, like a flower in spring. When the main character came to the ball, the ladies said in surprise that she was beautiful, and she was exactly the same as she was 5 years ago. But the woman objects and says that she would say that the lady became even more beautiful, really changed lately. Joanna says that she and the Duke have become closer, and at this rate, she will soon become the Duchess of Devonshire. Melissa thought that Joanna came here after that situation, so she doesn't know what happened between them. However, she is also glad that she and the Duke got along, but she understands that she won't take the words out of the song. Rowana turns to Melissa and says that she searched for her, and the maid asks Miss what happened. The lady suggests going to the terrace because she needs some fresh air. The maid asks the lady if it is possible that she has just had a little too much to drink, and also asks if she is feeling dizzy. The main character claims that she is fine, and then says that it is cool and easier to breathe there. Melissa says that she will bring a cloak, and the lady thanks her. Rowana reminds the girl that she wanted to tell her something. Then, and the maid, surprised, asks what she is talking about. The lady reminds that she wanted to tell her something, but the Baron interrupted them. Melissa sighs and says that she just wanted to say that she always really wanted to meet her again, and then says that she will be right back. At this time, the Duke came up to the girl and hugged her. She asks why he dressed like a vampire today. He answers that he himself does not know, and then kisses her neck. Rowana asks if he will let her go after he drinks all of her red liquid. He says no way, and then touches her shoulders again. The girl says that she has a request, and then says that she wants Damien to have a teacher, and explains that he himself knows that she does not have enough erudition to teach him. The gentleman agrees with her and says that he will take care of it. The lady says that there is one person, and they have a mutual friend, and she would like to recommend him. Killian asks who this man is, and then he kisses her again. The girl asks him not to do it, because Melissa is coming. The Duke asks how she knows him. She replies that he is one of her favorite writers, which is why she thought he could teach Damien. The gentleman asks his name, and the girl says it's Roderick Dyphons. While in a casino, a man, the blonde guy, says it's a royal straight flush and then asks if they'll play again. The gentleman says that at this rate, he will be left penniless and therefore refuses to continue the game. The winner says that he will meet them next time and then asks his lordship what he will say. Killian is invited to play again, but first he must get rid of the cheating deck secured under the table. Hearing this, the man asks in surprise how he knows this, and then says that he will return his money. His lordship says he can keep them because he doesn't care at all. The guy asks, "What's the matter then?" since he knows that the gentleman usually doesn't stay out late. The Duke replies that it's just like that. The man reads the newspaper and says that the shareholders are in huge. Plus, they boast about their sudden growth, and he understands where such an attitude to money comes from. The guy with blonde hair thinks that the gentleman is probably on cloud nine. A small company that originated somewhere in a small southern port now controls all the maritime traffic passing through Easelwood. It is no surprise that Killian Devonshire chose this port to start his business. This isolated place, washed by cruel waves, also had an underground network with vital connections to other countries. The process of reorganizing this network under Killian's leadership can hardly be called anything other than a small war. He justified his stay there by the desire to visit his wife's homeland. The gentleman himself, meanwhile, had been to this southern port more than once in order to personally control the course of the war. The situation reached its endgame when Killian took by the gills a large organization that refused to surrender to the very end. The gentleman said that if he gives them the list of names, he will live. The man asks if he is Killian Devonshire, and then says that he has heard a lot about him. And they say that his mother was an actress who slept with everyone she met. The man claims that she carried him for his father because his wife was infertile, and then asks if that is true. The man thought that he had given him the lists of names and thought that he would not do anything to him, and the Duke at that time said that he had quickly become bored with him and then finished him off. Killian suggests that in the next life he will come up with a more interesting insult. Seeing this, the guy thought that he had never been shy about getting his hands dirty, and now this gentleman is here in such a suit and even began to look somehow softer. Killian tells the guy to find out if there is a courtesan named Rowena Falone. The man says that 8 years ago she briefly surfaced and suggests that perhaps she is still doing the same thing, and then asks if that is the name of his favorite. The guy asks if the gentleman needs a courtesan with the same name. He replies that he needs any information, and then says that if he does his job well, he will receive 3 times more money than he currently holds in his hands. In the evening when Killian returned home, he approached the girl's room and thought that it was too quiet there and also assumed that she was in another room. The Duke came into the lady's room and realized that she had gone to sleep in her own room again. But he remembered that he had told her to go to bed in his bed. The gentleman kisses the girl, but this time she doesn't wake up, and he thinks that he'll probably let her sleep peacefully for one night. When Killian was about to leave, he heard a request that Mom and Dad not leave her. He claims that everything is fine, and that this is the only way it will be. The man returned to the girl's bed and said that he would do everything to ensure that she never cried again. And the man who was driving the carriage, when he arrived at the luxurious mansion, asked the sir if he was sure that they were going there. The rider thanked the man for giving him a lift, and standing under the gates of the mansion, thought that he had finally reached the house in which this bastard was holding his precious niece. The gentleman's assistant met the man and said that he believed it to be Mr. Roderick Dyphones, then says that he is glad to meet him and informs that his name is Jenoch and he is the Duke's secretary. Uncle says that his efficiency runs ahead of him and he is only a mediocre writer, but the gentleman already knows his name. Jenoch reports that he couldn't help but notice that the teacher arrived in a carriage, and then reports that they did send a carriage for him. Roderick explains that he just doesn't really like riding in expensive carriages because he thinks they're a bit cramped. The assistant says that if he had warned them in advance they would have taken appropriate measures, and therefore apologizes, and then asks if this is all his luggage. The teacher says that these are all his things, and the assistant offers to follow him and then shows him his room, which will be his for the time he is here. Janak reports that he can discuss the details with Miss Falone, and the contract is for 6 months and can be extended if necessary. The secretary informs that his free time is exclusively his, and he is free to spend it as he pleases. However, he must remember that everything that happens in this house must stay in this house. Janak asks the teacher what he is doing. Roderick tells him not to worry, as he believes he only has one life, and therefore he is not going to risk it by spreading gossip. The secretary says he is glad they understood each other, and then says he thought it would be very difficult to hire such an outstanding person, and thanks them for agreeing to the job. The teacher says that writers are people too, and he just wants to make money, and then asks when he can see Miss Falone. The assistant informs him that his bath is ready, and asks him to give it a little time, after which he takes him to Miss Falone, and says that he will return soon, and takes his leave. When the young man left the teacher's room, he thought that he was a rare scumbag, and that he could see right through such money-hungry bastards. But he would tell his lordship that there was nothing to worry about. After some time, the secretary introduces the teacher to Miss Falone, and the lady says that it is an honor for her to see him in person. Roderick says that he is also glad to meet them, and he heard that she is an avid reader of his works. The lady says that she has read all his books, or maybe she claims that she is too kind, and then says that he knows that only masterpieces have come from under his pen. Hearing this, Janak says that he needs to go away on business, and he will leave them, and then he leaves. When they are alone, the girl turns to her uncle, and he asks what is going on, and also wonders if she is the Duke's favorite. Uncle reports that on the way to the capital, he heard a huge number of rumors, and is also interested in what happened to her during this time. Rowana says that she will tell him everything, and told Jeremy everything that happened to her, how she became the Duke's favorite after her friend's betrayal, and how she was abandoned on the island, and how she was returned after the birth of Damien. The uncle says in surprise that she now has a child, and he will teach her son, and then says that he cannot even imagine how she went through all this at her age, because all this breaks his heart. The girl assures that everything is fine now, but he says that he doesn't think Damien will be happy here. The main character explains that this is why she needs his help, but she understands that it will not be easy, since the Duke is not some ordinary aristocrat. Jeremy suggests that she wait, and then asks if she said that the island where he left her is a resort somewhere in the south, and after thinking a little, he says that there is probably a way. A few days later, the Duke asks the lady how her tutor is, and then reports that Janik said he was a bit of an oddball. Rowana agrees with him, and says that he has a couple of quirks, but he is a great teacher, but both she and Damien like him. The Duke says he is glad to hear that, and then asks what she's been up to today. The lady explains that she went to the salon with Countess Selina, and she is hosting a charity event at the end of the year, and so she asked for her help, and she decided to respond. Even in her time as Rowena's favorite, she regularly received invitations from aristocrats, but this was only to advertise these events or to gain the Duke's trust, so asking for help in organizing something so important was new to her, and it was direct proof that Rowena's social status in high society had risen to that of a duchess. The main character reports that she was very impressed by the banquet the day before and thinks that she will be busy with preparations for some time because she needs to write an invitation and hire musicians and a chef too. Killian reminds her that he asked her a question and then kisses her neck and asks what else she needs to do. She replies that she needs to figure out the arrangement of the vases and how to arrange the waiters. The gentleman says that she seems to be trying very hard, and then says that the butler is also very pleased and thinks that she can be trusted with the keys to the wine cellar. Hearing this, the girl was surprised and thought that the keys to the wine cellar are a symbol that will mean that he trusts her with all the affairs of the estate. and what she dreamed of 5 years ago is coming true. However, the main character understands that reality is an imitation, always and in everything, a losing dream. And then she says that she is not ready yet because she still has a lot to learn and asks if he understands her. Killian asks in surprise if she is playing with him, and then says that he agrees to play along with her as long as everything goes as usual, because he doesn't care what's going on in her head. Even if she secretly hates him and wants to finish him off, he doesn't give a damn. Rowena asks not to say such a thing, and then explains that she just needs time to think. The girl thought that he knew that he had treated her cruelly that time, and he understood that, but she did not love him, no matter how many times she said the opposite. The lady became interested in what this man was thinking, and assumed that he thought that they could start all over again. The lady turns to the Duke and says she has a request. Then she remembers her uncle's words to listen to him carefully because she knows she has a way to escape. The teacher says that he will do anything to get her and Damien out of here, and he suggested asking the Duke to take her to that island on the date he said. Rowena tells the gentleman that next summer she wants to visit that island again, and at that time she thought about the island where he left her and married another woman. The maid asks the young gentleman what he does and also wonders if he reads anything. The boy says that he liked Mr. Defonce's book. The maid is surprised to hear that the book looks like a manuscript. The young master explains that this is because it has not yet been sent to print, and then tells her that the main character has the same name as him. Melissa asks what the book is about. The boy says that the main character Damien lived happily with his mother, although they had little money. But one day, an evil dragon came and took Mom, and the brave Damien decided to gather his friends to save her and went to the good sorcerer for advice. At this time, the teacher came into the room and said that he was interested in what they were chatting about here, and then said that he had not yet sent this manuscript to the publishing house because it was not yet for everyone. When the child saw the teacher, he ran up to him and hugged him, and Roderick wished him good morning and asked him to return the manuscript and asked the maid why she came. The maid explains that she just wanted to check on the young master. He says that Melissa is the Mrs. Personal servant and asks if she is allowed to just wander around the mansion when she has no work to do. Hearing this, the girl was surprised and then asked to forgive her. He suggests to be more careful next time and says that she is free and can go. Damien asks Mr. in surprise why he is doing this to her, and then claims that Melissa is good. Roderick says that he has a bad feeling about this, and then reminds him that he asked the boy to call him uncle when there are no strangers around. The child says that he is his mother's uncle, and it turns out that he is his grandfather, and asks if this is true. The man says that he is smart and suggests calling him uncle anyway, and then says that his mother is going to the capital today, and he will go to her in 2 days. The uncle asks the boy if he remembers what he told him. He replies that the gentleman asked him to pretend that he did not notice or hear anything. And the teacher says that the affairs of adults are much more complicated than it may seem to him, and therefore suggests not to forget that he is not guilty of anything. Roderick asks if he finished the homework he gave him yesterday, because he realizes there was a lot of it. The child claims that it is too early for the lesson and asks if he has time to finish it. The man says that he is somehow suspicious and offers to show what he has managed to do. The maid did her mistress's hair and said that everything was ready, and then she claimed that she was very beautiful and the weather was warm now, but she would arrive in the capital closer to nightfall, and therefore thought it would be better to put on a shawl. The mistress agrees with her and asks Melissa if she is okay, because she thinks she is upset today. The maid explains that she went to visit Damien this morning and was scolded by the teacher. The lady smiled and asked if it was true, and then said that sometimes he gets a little scared and wondered if she would give her a shawl. The maid said that of course she would do it and would return right away, and then quickly ran off. Joanna asked Miss if she had noticed anything strange about her, and whispered in the lady's ear that she regularly ran to see someone, and that it was that secretary of his lordship. Rowana asked the maid if she was sure, and Joanna said that as she knows their rooms are neighbors, and she has been running away late at night. The maid explains that at first she thought that she was just walking, but the fact that Melissa left almost every night seemed strange to her, and so she decided to follow her. The lady asks what she has learned. Joanna says that she saw Melissa meet Mr. Jenick in the servants' dining room. The lady was surprised when she heard this and wondered why they were hiding. And the maid explains that it is because servants are forbidden to have romantic relationships with each other. Joanna says that Mr. Jenock works directly under his lordship and believes that there is a huge gap between him and Melissa because they have a love that is not afraid even of the difference in social status. Rowana heard footsteps and says that Melissa is running fast and then invites her to come in. At this time, the gentleman enters the room and says that he is disappointed because the lady does not recognize him by his steps. The main character asks in surprise why he came, and then says that they have a few hours before leaving. He asks why the girl is moving away and approaches her. The lady explains that she was just a little embarrassed, and the gentleman asks what she is hiding from him. At this point, the maid quickly left. Killian touched the girl's face and said that she has definitely been worried about something lately. Rowana says she wants to ask him a question, and he says he's all ears. She asks if he's thought about her request and says that every time she thinks about that island, only bad memories come to mind, and she'd like to rewrite them with new good ones. The Duke tells her to turn to the mirror and close her eyes, and then tells her that first they will go to the capital and have as many receptions as they want, and watch as many performances as they want. The gentleman says that later they will go together to that ill-fated island. He puts the necklace on the lady's neck and asks if she likes it. The girl says it's beautiful, and then asks if it's not a royal family heirloom. Killian reminds her that she used to wear something like this, and asks why it bothers her so much now. At this time, the main character thought that she was blind and naive. Then, because she did not understand how the world works, she did not know what she could and could not do. Rowana didn't realize that people would point fingers at her if she wore something so expensive, and she had no idea that she had become a woman who was embarrassing to appear before God. The girl says that if it really is a family jewel, then she shouldn't wear it. Hearing this, the gentleman claims that nothing has changed fundamentally since then, and reminds her that he already told her that she should just behave properly. The Duke tells her not to question anything, and not to ask unnecessary questions, but to eat the food he feeds her, and wear the clothes he chooses for her, and also to do exactly what he suggests she do. The main character agrees with him, and at this time the maid says that she is Melissa, and asks if she can come in. Rowana invites her to come in, and at that moment, the Duke kisses the lady on the lips. Seeing this, the maid tells the lady that she will wait for her outside. A few minutes later, when the Duke left, Melissa asks where Joanna is, and Miss replies that she left when the Duke came in. The maid apologizes for taking so long to find the shawl, and the lady says it's okay, and then asks if she will help him put it on. Melissa asks if the lady is going to the capital for a long time. She replies that they will stay there all spring, and in the summer they will go to the island, and reminds that she has also been there once. The maid asks in surprise if she is sure, and the mistress replies that she is sure because she believes that the past should remain the past. Melissa turns to his lordship and says that she has something to tell him, and then informs him that it was all a lie and that Miss Rowana had been faithful to him. Hearing this, the Duke asks who ordered her to lie. She replies that it was Baron Sussex. Hearing this, the gentleman thought that it was him, and his premonition was right, and suggested that she act as if nothing had happened. The Duke tells her to behave with the miss as always, and to report to him about everything she does, and not to dare lie to him anymore. The boy who was selling the newspaper screamed and said that there was fresh news, and that Duke Killian Devonshire was returning to the capital with his favorite. The Duke of Devonshire once used his wedding and subsequent honeymoon as excuses to stay away from the capital. Therefore, as soon as the newspapers found out that he was returning to the company with his former favorite, a real scandal arose, and the ladies were surprised because nothing had been heard about this favorite for 5 years. Countess Rachel reports that a relative of hers who lives near the Duke said that she has not changed at all over the years. The Marquise says that she feels uneasy because she was kicked out in disgrace by the man she'd been with for 3 years, and she returned to him like a faithful little dog. And her friend says that she agrees with her because she is amazed at what people are capable of for money and power. The Countess says it's just a proposal, and then asks what if she suddenly secretly becomes pregnant. The woman in the yellow dress says in surprise that it can't be, and she would never believe it. The Marquise claims that such a thing cannot be dismissed because there were rumors that the previous Duchess could not have children, and if that favorite of his suddenly became pregnant with his child, then this would perfectly explain why he decided to bring her back. The lady claims that she would voluntarily become his favorite, again dreaming of being the mother of the future Duke. The Viscountess says that her lordship has received her for 4 months already, and if her assumption was correct, he would have known the Duke and announced his heir long ago. The Countess reports that if she were in the Duke's place, she would not want a child born out of wedlock to become the heir, and she would secretly order the death of Miss Falloon and announce that the child is from his ex-wife. The woman explains that she is simply saying that their theory is wrong and suggests that they talk about something else since they are, after all, sophisticated people. The Baroness wonders how to understand such a vulgar woman, and the Countess claims that they should be so much above this topic. At this time, the main character enters the room and says that she sees that the conversation is in full swing, and then says that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and asks how they are doing. The Countess turns to the miss and says that they didn't notice her arrival. Rowana apologizes and then explains that she just overheard their conversation from the waiting room, and it turned out to be so interesting that she didn't dare interrupt it. The Marchioness says that it is nothing to worry about and invites Miss Falloon to sit down, but the Viscountess objects and says that this place belongs to a respected aristocrat. She is afraid that a woman who is not one should not occupy it because she believes that it will put Countess Rachel in a bad light. Rowana turns to the Viscountess and says that she is extremely brave, and then reports that with this remark she insulted not only the Countess who invited her, but also the Duke of Devonshire. The main character asks if she will take responsibility for her words. Hearing this, the woman screams and says that she only pointed out a person who should not be here. The lady does not understand why this woman behaves so differently, because 5 years ago she stood there as if she had taken water in her mouth, although she cursed her with all her might. The Viscountess considers the girl a slob who would never have been there if it weren't for her beauty, and then turns to Miss Falloon and says that she understands her lack of education and knowledge of etiquette, but believes that there are things that are considered acceptable and things that should not be allowed. The lady says that they rely on the social status and position of a person in society. Rowana thanks her for the lesson, and the woman says that if she had understood everything, then the main character asks to be allowed to ask her one question, and then asks whether it is considered acceptable to spread dirty lying gossip about a member of the royal family or not. Hearing this, the Viscountess explains that she didn't mean anything like that because they were just chatting, and doesn't understand why she suddenly accuses her of something like that. Rowana asks if she is ready to walk and repeat the same words in front of other people. Then she admits that she was just chatting harmlessly. And for example, can she say these words in front of Duke Killian Devonshire? She offers to walk to him together. At this time, the Viscountess thought that the Duke of Devonshire was cruel and merciless, and everyone knew it, and if she ended up on his bad side, the lady explains that she did not think properly, and therefore apologizes to Miss Falloon, and will be more careful with her words in the future. The Countess turns to the Miss and says that Lady Estelle is very sorry and therefore hopes that the lady will find the generosity in herself to forgive her. The lady says that her words clearly showed disrespect for the royal family, and such behavior cannot be left unpunished, and therefore from now on, she will not invite Viscountess Estelle to her receptions. The main character thought that the influence of Countess Rachel on the capital's high society is difficult to overestimate, and with these statements, she not only broke all ties with the Viscountess, but she could say that she expelled her from high society. Hearing this, the Viscountess falls to her knees and asks Countess Rachel for anything but this. Meanwhile, the Countess turns to the servants and says that their mistress is drunk and is not responsible for her actions, and therefore asks to be escorted to the sofa. Mistress Rachel turns to the lady and says that as the person who invited her and the Duke here, she apologizes for what she had to witness. Rowana thinks that the lady has nothing to apologize for. The Countess says that they now have 2 free places, and they always leave one place, just in case of unexpected guests, but she understands that 2 is too much, and therefore she would be very grateful if the lady would take one of them. After the ball, Killian says that he is tired, and the girl asks if he had a lot to do. The man says that he heard that there was a small incident today, and as far as he knows, the girl mentioned the royal family. Rowana replies that it was unreasonable on her part, and the gentleman suggests that she continue in the same spirit and not let them wipe their feet on her and let her continue to act the same way as today, since she understands that it is better than crying later. Hearing this, the girl asks in surprise how he knows that she was crying, and the Duke suggests that she be quieter, then unbuttons her shirt and says that he believes that she deserves a reward. The next morning, the man entered the girl's room and informed her that his lordship had left early in the morning, and he asked her to forgive him for his intrusion. The main character asks Mr. Jenock what he is doing in the Duke's room, and the man replies that the gentleman wanted him to ask her something, and then asks if she knows a woman named Carol Bertimer. Hearing this name, the girl thought that naturally she knows, because this is her ex-girlfriend, who invited her to the capital, who then ran away, leaving her with a huge debt, and no matter how much she looked for her, she could not find her. Rowana asks how he knows this name, and the man claims that it means she knows her, and then says that his lordship left her instructions and offers to go with the maid to this address. When the maid saw a street where there were many poor people, she asked the mistress if she thought they had come to some bad place, and also wondered if they could have gotten the address wrong. The lady claims that the place is correct and the address is correct. Melissa tells Miss that there is definitely something wrong there, because his lordship would never send her to such a place. The lady says that if she is afraid, she can wait in the carriage. When the main character entered the house, she thought that this was the very place, and she climbed the same steps, half full of expectations, half with excitement. But it was on the first day when she arrived in the capital. The name of her old friend who betrayed her, the address where she arrived on her first day in the capital, and therefore she understands that this is not just a coincidence, but also interesting what Killian is trying to achieve. When Rowana opened the door, she saw a tied-up girl asking for mercy. Carol asks if he recognizes her and asks to help her. The Duke says that he was waiting for her and asks if she remembers his promise, and then reminds that he said that the girl would receive a reward. Killian reports that Carol was hiding under her name and working as a courtesan, and then reports that he doesn't like debts because everything she receives, both as an act of generosity and as an act of betrayal, comes from other people's debts, and he always pays his own. The man hands the lady a gun and says that it's time for her, too. However, the girl holding the gun in her hands does nothing. The Duke asks if she is not offended by her, because if he were in her place, he would be seething with anger, and he thinks that if she cannot pull the trigger herself, then she should ask someone else. Killian claims that if she feels that she does not deserve a quick, painless death, then he says that he can leave her alive and take revenge as much as she wants. Rowana says that she refuses, and she would be lying if she said that she hates her and does not curse her. The girl swears that if she sees Carol again, she will hit her hard. Hearing this, the ex-girlfriend began to cry, and the main character says that she does not want such revenge because she thinks that it is simply wrong. The Duke asks if what she did was right. The girl explains that she understands that Carol used her and betrayed her, but she will not be like her. And at that time, she thought that she is not like Carol and will not live like the Duke. The gentleman looked at the lady in surprise and said that she could do as she saw fit. Rowana approached the girl, and she, frightened, asked not to approach. The lady untied her hands and calmed her down. Carol asked her for forgiveness, and the main character assures that she is now safe and at that time lost consciousness. The Duke quickly picked up the girl and said that she was probably overexcited, and her ex-girlfriend asked him not to finish her off. Killian tells her that the lady spared her, and he respects her choice, and then tells her that she will have to pay because he is not like Rowena. The Duke brought the girl home and thought that Baron Benedict Sussex was a faithful servant and the first person who extended his hand to him when he was orphaned, and therefore he did not even doubt his words that he said 5 years ago. The gentleman understood that he had not even imagined that his faithful dog had been yearning to grab the throat of the most precious thing he had all this time. And that is why he wanted to finish him off right now. But if he was not careful, it would come back to haunt him later. The man thought about the woman who refused revenge, although the traitor was right in front of her, and he wanted to test her dignity so that they would be in the same boat and on the same level. But she chose forgiveness, although the traitor was right in front of her and the weapon was in her hands. Killian looked at the girl and said that if she was able to forgive her, then this means that not all is lost for him. The maid informs the mistress that she is coming in, and when she sees his lordship, she asks for forgiveness. He asks if the child is in the house and where he is now. Hearing this, Joanna thought about what she heard, that the gentleman did not like young Master Damien very much, and he fell asleep in the carriage, so the nanny carried him to the room. The Duke says that while Rowena is sleeping, he will look at the boy there, and then he goes into the child's room. The man touched the boy's hair and realized that he was his son, whose existence he had never even known or even suspected his entire life. At this time, Damien felt someone's warm and soft hand, and he wondered who was stroking him, his nanny or his mother, but he understood that the feeling was different, and as if something was really missing. The next morning, the maid tells the young master that he woke up early today, and she thinks he is in a good mood. Damien says that he had a good dream, and he doesn't remember what happened, and then asks when he can see his mother. The nanny says that there is a large park nearby, and he asks in surprise if he can leave the house if he wants. The woman says that she herself was surprised when the Duke gave her permission, and then asks if it really is amazing. Damien happily says that there are ducks swimming in this lake, and the nanny says that he is a sweet boy and asks him not to go anywhere because she will take something to eat. When the nanny left, the Duke came up to the boy and sat down next to him. The child said that it was occupied, and the gentleman said that he didn't even know that public benches belonged to someone. And at that moment, he thought that he was handsome but so evil. Killian asks what he is admiring so much. Damien explains that there is a family of ducks swimming on the lake, and he adores them because they are his favorite animal. The man asks why the ducks, and the child says that the mother duck always stays with the father duck, and together they protect and love their children. And he is always very happy when he sees the ducks. The young gentleman says that he also has a family, and his mother, and the Duke asks about his father. The boy explains that his mother said that his father was somewhere far away, and therefore could not come to them, but it seems to him that if they met, he would love him very much. Damien thinks that maybe they are far apart now, but he will immediately understand that he is his son when he sees him. Hearing this, the gentleman agrees with him and says that he thinks it will be so. Suddenly, the servant tells the master to quickly leave here because the wolf escaped from the zoo and is now wandering around this park somewhere nearby. Hearing this, Killian became worried because the child was still next to him. Damien turns to the mister and offers to look at the wolf that was approaching them. The Duke quickly grabbed the boy in his arms, and at that time the wolf attacked him. However, the guards quickly finished off this beast. The nanny excitedly asks the child if he is hurt. The boy assures that he is fine, but the uncle then looked to see him but does not understand where he went. The nanny claims that things could have been much worse and therefore suggests returning. At this time, the main character woke up and thought that these were her capital chambers, and she lost consciousness. The maid asks the mistress if she is awake, and then asks how she is feeling. The lady replies that she is not bad, and asks if she can bring her some water, and also asks how long she was unconscious. Melissa says that she slept all day, and the main character asks what happened to this woman. The maid replies that she saw that she went somewhere with the Duke, and according to her, he decided to let this Carol go. The maid says that he took a written promise from her that she would never do anything like that again. Ravana asks where the Duke is now, and the maid explains that he said that he would be gone for a while because he had business, and he also said that if the lady wanted, she could sleep with the young master Damien. Hearing this, the main character asked in surprise if her son was here, and at that moment the boy came to her and hugged her. He said that he missed her, and then asked if his mother missed him. Rowana asks how he is doing, and the child says that today he was in the park and a wolf attacked him, and he almost bit him, but an uncle saved him. The main character thanks God, and then says that she is very glad that her son is okay, and hugs the boy. She wonders who saved him and whether he asked the name of this uncle. Damien replies that he hurt his hand because of him, and then asks his mother if it is possible to go to that park again. The woman asks why in surprise, and the child says that he wants to see that uncle again. The next day they sat in the park for a very long time, but the man Damien was looking for never showed up. Mom asks if it is possible that this man is in the hospital because he got hurt. Melissa says that if the wound is very serious, then she can start looking. The lady thanked the maid and then said that she would also ask Mr. Janak for help because she wanted to personally thank the man who saved his son. Melissa asks the lady if she has heard the news yet, and then says that the newspaper says that from tomorrow and for a week, the royal hunting grounds will be open to ordinary people. Hearing this, the boy became interested, and the maid explains that this is a large forest in which there are many rabbits and deer. The child turns to his mother and says that he wants to go there too. Rowana says that if he behaves well, they will go there because he will have to eat all the vegetables and obey the nanny. The boy agrees with her. The maid reports that a woman has stopped the carriage and she is coming towards them. The main character hears that the voice belongs to Duchess Rachel, and she asks the maid to hide the boy. The lady got out of the carriage and greeted the Duchess, and Rachel says that she thought it was her and then asks if she was returning from somewhere. The Duchess says that the weather is just wonderful today and asks why she has curtained the carriage. Lydia explains that she just didn't want to attract too much attention and decided to get some fresh air today, so she is walking in the park. But suddenly the child sneezed. The mistress asks who is next to her. Rowana answers that she is with the maid, and Rachel says that she thought the child sneezed, and then says that she has 4 of her own, and she always recognizes this sound. The Duchess saw the child's leg, and then says that he is a little gentleman, and asks why he is hiding. The lady says that he is the Duke's nephew, a distant relative from abroad, and he does not know the language very well, so he is shy. Hearing this, the lady says that this is the first time she has heard that the Duke has a nephew, and asks the lady to steal a couple of minutes from her. And the miss is wondering if it is necessary right now, and the woman claims that it is very important, and she will not regret it. The lady tells Melissa that she will be away for a short while, and asks her to look after the child. The Duchess asks the lady if she understands that her current position is very precarious, but she thinks that judging by her reaction, she does not. Rachel says that the Queen invited the daughter of the Marquis of Talden to the royal castle, and she entered through the back door and not the main entrance. The main character asks, "And what follows from this?" The lady explains that Miss Falana is one of the most innocent girls she has ever met, and this means that the Queen secretly chose Lady Talden for the role of the Duchess of Devonshire, and then asks if she has noticed any changes in the Duke. At this time, the girl remembered the maid's words, that he had urgent business. He would be gone for some time, and she could sleep with the young master. The Duchess looked at the lady and said that she understood that the news might shock her, but there was nothing she could do, because aristocrats do not always succeed in choosing a spouse. The lady offers Miss Falone to listen to this, that maybe she is only his favorite, but as long as he has the support of the Duke, then she can get all the power she wants. The woman reports that the Duchess has been left without attention, and her husband's love will be nothing more than a doll in his hands, and reminds him that she kicked out Viscountess Estelle and therefore can take her place, because she believes that they are now in the same boat. The Duchess states that she will do everything in her power to help her retain the Duke's favor. The lady says that she understands and thanks her, and then asks permission to ask her something. Rowana asks the Marquise's daughter if she is a green-eyed blonde. Rachel replies that she can't say for sure about her eyes, but she heard that she is a brunette. The main character does not understand why she suddenly became interested in this, because she believes that marriage may mean nothing to him and not evoke a response in his soul, because a favorite is enough for him to replace the woman he loves. The girl asks if the Duke will marry a second time, because she believes that there is no longer any need to run away, because if the wedding happens, they will get rid of her again. Rowana realizes that she needs to keep Damien's secret for as long as possible. The uncle turns to the girl, and she says that from the very beginning, she was just a toy and a replacement for his beloved, and believes that now he will have a new toy, and he will not need the old one that he played with before. Jeremy says that he can't believe that Damien is the son of such a cruel, heartless man, and then suggests that Rowena calm down because not everything is as it seems to her, because he believes that the Duke does not plan to let her go. The man thought that ever since he arrived here, he had been watching very closely how he led her next to him, and there was always only one expression on his face, and it was a dark, frightening obsession. The main character asks if he really thinks so, and the uncle assures that his intuition has never deceived him and believes that they have nothing to be happy about. Jeremy remained silent because he thought it was better to keep his opinion to himself, because he understood that if he said it, her feelings for him would flare up again. Their sudden freedom did not last long, as Killian, who had been missing for some time, suddenly reappeared in the middle of the night. Rowana greeted the gentleman and said that he disappeared without saying anything, and then explained that she was very worried. He asked in surprise if she was really worried about him. The lady claims that she always worries when he is not around, and at that time she thought that something in him seemed to have changed, but she cannot understand what exactly, because she has the same feeling as after a long separation of 5 years. The girl looked at his hand and asked what happened to his hand. He said that he cut himself with glass and there was nothing to worry about. The main character suggests not to say that since he even walks around with a bandage. The Duke says that he didn't think that she was so interested in what he does, and then says that 5 years ago she was just as curious and asks if this is a new habit for her. Rowana claims that he seems upset about something and then says that she will sleep in another room tonight. Killian says he wants to ask her something, and then asks what her life has been like in the 5 years he's been gone. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, because he had never asked her this question since their reunion, and even more so, he always avoided this topic with extreme caution, and seemed to want to cut this moment of his life out of his memory. The girl asks why he is asking, and the man replies that he just became curious. The lady says that her life was normal, and maybe she was pathetic as he called her, but she lived peacefully and happily, and maybe she is happier than ever. Milady reflects on the fact that she does not want to cry in front of him, and then says that if such an answer is enough for him, then she asks him to forgive her. The Duke asks how the birth went, and she surprised asks why he needs to know this, and then says that she almost died because she went to work with a protruding belly, and one cold winter night, she simply gave birth in an old house after a day of work. Rowana says that it is, and that's all, no more no less, and then asks if he was pleased by the stories about how worthless her life was, and if that's all he wanted to know, then she wants to leave. Killian says he's been thinking about getting a dog, and this time it's a commitment he's taking on forever. The gentleman says that the fox hunting season is about to begin, and an obedient hound would not hurt him. So tomorrow they will go to the breeder and see what he has, and the child will go with them. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and said that he would not like to be near the child, and he wondered why she thought so. The lady explained that it had always been like that. The Duke then suggests leaving Damien with the nanny away from him so that he doesn't have to see him, and then asks if she is happy. Rowana asks why he wants to take his son with them, and he replies that it is because children understand animals better than adults. The seller says that this is the most popular breed and points to a small puppy, and then says that he has a good pedigree and is very well trained, and is also very brave, and can fight with an animal 10 times his size. The gentleman says that fighting an animal 10 times larger is more stupidity than courage, and asks if he thinks so. At this time the man thought that when he heard that the Duke of Devonshire would come to him, he prepared as well as he could, but he realized that serving him was even more difficult than he thought. The seller looked at the lady who was with the gentleman, and thought that this was the same Rowena Falone, and thought that he did not need a pet potter for his favorite. The man says that they have another cutie, and then asks what he says, and wonders if this little one isn't cute. The lady looks at this puppy with delight. Meanwhile, the dog ran up to the young gentleman and started playing with him. The salesman says he apologizes and then asks if the young gentleman is okay. Damien claims that everything is fine and this puppy just liked him. The man says that he has no pedigree and he is stupid, so no one takes him, and they plan to put him down today, and he can't believe that it happened. The boy asks in surprise how to put it to sleep, and the seller explains what it means, but the Duke interrupts him and says that they will take this puppy for themselves, and then asks Janoc to pay. The gentleman said that they needed to go somewhere, and the boy was delighted and took the puppy in his arms. Rowana asks Killian where they are going, and he asks why it took her so long to get ready, and then takes her hand and suggests that they go faster. At this time, the main character thought that from their very first meeting in public, he always kept himself apart from her and regularly took her to public places. But a favorite is just a favorite. The lady understands that unlike his wife with whom he has an oath before God, the favorite can never raise her head, and therefore she is afraid because she does not like it, but against the warmth of his hand, against the sudden changes in his behavior, and against her desire to give him another chance. Rowana suggests to the gentleman to let her go as people are watching. He says that the lady is being sociable today and asks why she is so ashamed, as she knows that they have done worse things. The girl explains that this is not the case, and he says that they have already arrived. Seeing the building, the main character was surprised because it was the best studio in the capital. The worker offers the lady to take measurements, and at this time the Duke shows the dress that he likes. When the lady puts on the dress, the girls say with delight that she looks stunning. Rowana turns to his lordship and says that this dress is too beautiful for her, and she thinks that it does not suit her. Killian touches her hair and says he thinks it suits her very well. After that, they went to a jewelry store and for accessories, and the main character is completely exhausted. Sitting in the carriage, the girl asks what all this was for, and the gentleman asks what exactly. She says that he suddenly took her hand in public and bought her an expensive dress, and then asks what this ostentatious display of affection was for. The Duke replies that it is because he wants to, and asks if he needs a good reason. She thinks that she is simply worried that he will get into trouble if they attract so much attention, since after all he is getting married again soon. The gentleman looked at the girl in surprise and she said that she heard that the queen had already chosen a new wife for him, and therefore she believed that if his potential wife found out about their walk today. But the Duke interrupts the lady and asks who told her this, and tells her not to keep her in suspense, because he is very interested and would be happy to know who they are going to marry him to. At this time, the main character thought that she was wrong, because she shouldn't have told him anything, because he solves his problems differently than other people, and thinks that it's impossible to understand him, and it's better not to even try. Rowana says that she doesn't know anything else and just heard it out of the corner of her ear. He says that judging by how this conversation started, she herself doesn't really know anything about it, but she still really looks forward to him getting married again. Killian comes closer to the girl and asks her to speak honestly, and then asks if she wants him to marry another woman and have a child with her. The lady does not understand why he is asking such an obvious question, because she sincerely wants to free herself from this man, but at the same time does not want to see another woman near the Duke. The main character believes that he used her as a replacement for his dead bride and ruined her life, and therefore does not want him to fall in love with another woman and live happily with her. Rowana says that she is not from a noble family, and her past is also not worthy of mentioning, and she did not even entertain the idea that she could become a duchess, because she is smart enough to understand that their relationship must end. And at this time the Duke kisses the lady, and she understands that their relationship will end in disaster, and this cannot be changed. And if this is God's will, then she hopes that he will forgive her a little evil, because she wants to tear Killian's heart into pieces. The main character thought that she wanted him to suffer more than she suffered, and in order to completely fool him, she must mix love and hate in herself. However, she understands that if she only whispers pleasant nonsense to him, he will immediately understand everything. The girl believes that she needs to be so sincere that she herself does not understand whether she is pretending or not. Rowana informs the master that she will have a request that he take her with him on the upcoming hunt and treat her the same way as he did today in front of his future bride. Countess Rachel says that fox hunting season is just around the corner, and the Duke of Devonshire is going to take part, and asks if this is right. The lady says that she will go with him too. And the lady, hearing this, says that she is much smarter than she thought, and says that every dog already knows how she and the Duke recently walked holding hands. The Countess says that it doesn't matter whether it was on purpose or not, because she believes that what is more important is that the Duke's affection for her is unwavering. Rachel says that she never thought that something like this was typical for him, and she was very surprised, and therefore believes that men really do change when they are attracted to a woman. The Countess claims that she is doing very well, and therefore suggests that Miss Filoni continue in the same spirit. The girl asks to be allowed to ask something, and then wonders why the Countess is helping her, because she thinks that she is not an aristocrat, and asks if it would not be easier to support the lady from the House of Talden. The lady claims that she asks very bold questions, and the lady apologized for going too far. The Countess says that there is nothing to worry about, and reports that 5 years ago she did not have the best opinion of her. The woman reports that in front of her there was a beautiful girl who was unhappy, and although she was dressed in an expensive dress and hung with jewelry, she could not even imagine why she would suddenly decide to run away. The Countess says that when the lady returned, she saw a completely different woman in front of her, and she was captivated by how she put Viscountess Estelle in her place, without even blinking an eye. Rachel says that she would like to know what changed her so much, and at this time the main character thought that she has changed, and thinks that she should thank Damien for this. The lady asks if she will tell her what caused this. The girl replies that unfortunately not, because it is a secret, and the lady says she knew it, and then suggests they go, because she found a great spot in the sun to have some tea. Rowana says that sounds great. Suddenly, the main character saw an umbrella that fell to the ground, and Viscountess Estelle, who says that she understands who has such bad manners, and offers to apologize to the girl she ran into. Rowana says that she was just about to, and the Viscountess asks if this is her apology and insists that she apologize properly because the girl she had the audacity to bump into is Lady Talden, the daughter of the Marquis of Talden. Lady Talden turns to Estelle and asks if she has spoken about her and offers to give Miss Falone a moment. Marquise Veronica Taldon reports that she is confused because she thought that such women sleep during the day and work at night. The main character heard this and was surprised, and the Countess said that this was a bit inconsistent and said that her name was Rachel, and she was sure that they had met her older sister. The Marquise asks in surprise if she is the sister of Countess Roderick, the royal lady-in-waiting. The lady claims that she is, and that she heard that she had arrived in the capital and therefore was going to send her an invitation. Hearing this, Veronica thought that Countess Rachel occupies a very important place in the capital's high society, and therefore considers it better to make a good impression on her. The Marchioness says that she would be very glad if such a worthy woman invited her. The Countess thanks him for the kind words and says that she would like to apologize for her friend's ignorance. Veronica claims that this is not the case and claims that they just bumped into each other by chance, and then asks Viscountess Estelle to pick up Miss Fallone's umbrella. Hearing this, the Viscountess was surprised and asked why all of a sudden, and the Marquise asked if she wanted to say that she should bend over for him. Estelle picked up her umbrella and asked Miss Fallone to hold it, and then said that she would take her leave, and the Marchioness wished them a pleasant day. The Countess suggests to the girl that the main thing is not to be nervous because she knows that Lady Veronica began to behave differently when she found out who she was, and this means that she needs approval from the capital's aristocracy. Rachel says that she can be understood because even after her debut, she lived in her hometown, and her health did not allow otherwise. However, this is not the main thing because she insulted them without a twinge of conscience, even though they met for the first time. The Countess reports that after this, she forced Viscountess Estelle, her comrade, to do something humiliating, and she does not even try to protect her people. Rowena asks if the lady wants to say that she won't cause any problems. Rachel says that she is the one who is glad that they understood each other. A Janok approaches them and turns to the main character and says that he needs to tell her something, and then says that he will take her to the estate. The assistant reports that something bad happened to the young gentleman, Damien, and that this morning he and the nanny were walking the dog, but the leash broke and the dog ran away. Mr. Damien ran after him, and the dog led him to a bad area, and there they came across a homeless man. The main character asks what he is saying and what happened to Damien. The man replies that fortunately he got off with just a scratch, and the homeless man was arrested. Hearing this, the lady says that everything could have been much worse, and then claims that he should have protected him since it was he who forced them to live here. Rowana sighed and then apologized and said that she knows that he is not guilty, but Janok claims that it is the other way around, and he believes that he is absolutely guilty and therefore apologizes. The lady asks where her son is now, and the man says that he is already asleep and therefore she will be able to see him tomorrow morning. At this time, the boy was lying in his bed and sleeping, and when he opened his eyes, he saw a young gentleman and said, "Is it true that he is the uncle from the park?" and asks if he is dreaming about this. Killian says he doesn't know and asks how he thinks. The child says he thinks he's dreaming, and then asks how else he could be here. The Duke touches the boy's hair and suggests that he sleep on Damien, claims that he woke him up, and then says that he doesn't want to sleep anymore. Killian asks why, and he replies that it's because he feels like he'll disappear again, and also asks if the man has children. The gentleman asks in surprise why such a question suddenly, and the child explains that he was simply curious. The Duke says he has a son, and as far as he knows, the boy is about the same age as him. Damien claims he says that as if he doesn't really know him, and the man claims that because that's how it is. Killian says that he doesn't like children because they make a lot of noise and they are naughty and annoying. Hearing this, the boy was surprised, because he thinks it's strange, because he is an adult. The young gentleman does not understand, but it seems to him that he is the same child, as he is a frightened little boy who wears an adult mask and then asks if he is a ghost. Hearing this, the Duke was surprised, and the child explained that his teacher once said that there are ghosts who do not understand that they died, and they remained in their world because they have unfinished business, and until they finish it, the road to heaven is closed to them. Yes, Mian says that maybe he also died, but remained in their world because he wants to find his son, and then asks if they can then become friends because he will definitely help him since he saved him. The boy says that he doesn't like children anymore, which means that he doesn't like them either, and the Duke objects and explains that he said that he doesn't like children, but he didn't say that he doesn't like them. The man says that he allows you to be his friend. At that time, the young gentleman thought that it seemed to him that this uncle was similar to someone even from their very first meeting. He thought that he was similar to him. Damien looked at the gentleman in surprise and asked if it was by chance, then changed his mind and said that it was nothing, and then asserted that he was not allowing anything else because he believed that friends should be equal. The Duke agrees with him and asks him to promise that he will not tell anyone about him, not even his mother since he is a ghost, and asks if he has forgotten about it. After all, if someone finds out about him, he may disappear. The young gentleman agrees with him and says that he will keep his mouth shut. The man suggests that he go to bed because it is late. Damien reminds him that he woke him up, and that's why he can't sleep a wink, and then asks if they can talk a little more. The gentleman says that it's time for him to sleep, and the boy asks in surprise how he knows his name. The child reflects on the fact that he thought that this man was his father because they were too similar and it couldn't be otherwise. But if he really is a ghost who disappears when he finds him, then he will be very upset and therefore will keep his thoughts to himself. The boy thought that he wanted to stay with him for at least a little while longer and then fell asleep. Genok asks his lordship how the young master is. He says that he just fell asleep and asks what he said to Rowena. The secretary says that he was attacked by a homeless man, and that is essentially true, but he did not say that he committed suicide with a pill that he had in his mouth as soon as the nanny caught him. The Duke thought that this was not just some homeless person, because the poison he used was the same one that killed Anna Eden, the woman who stole Miss Filoni's ring and then died under mysterious circumstances. Killian asks about the incident at the zoo, and the man says that everything is also very suspicious because the wolf's cage was repaired very recently, and all the locks were in perfect order, and therefore one can only assume that someone specially released him. The Duke asks if he thinks this is the work of one person. Genok says he can't say for sure, but he thinks it's not the queen because he thinks she has no reason to do something like this on her own territory. The gentleman suggests that maybe his ex-wife hired someone. The assistant reports that after the divorce, almost the entire family disowned her, and she began to take too many medications, and therefore she simply does not have the means to organize something like this. Killian reports that they have only one figure left, and Genok claims that his lordship already knows the answer, that it is Baron Benedict Sussex, because there is no one else. The man says that he can't get it into his head because the Baron was his first assistant and doesn't understand why he's doing something like that. The gentleman says that 5 years ago his loyalty to him was somewhat excessive, and he thought that his dear gentleman was simply being manipulated by some woman. The Duke thought that he was afraid of being punished for his past crimes, but he assumed that he felt betrayed and that he had returned to Rowena. And then he says that it doesn't matter because he went too far and therefore will pay dearly for deciding to encroach on him. Time passed, and May became fox hunting time. After the incident with Damien, Rowena tried not to go out too much, but she couldn't miss such an event. The maid, seeing the lady off, assures her that she and the nanny will take good care of the young master. The lady thanks her and says that if anything happens, then let them write immediately, and then leaves. The Duke says that she looks upset and asks if she is so worried about the child. Hearing this, the main character was surprised and thought that now it would be better to watch her words. The girl says that this is not the case, and then asks if Lady Veronica will also come to the event. Killian says he never thought she would be so childishly jealous of him. The woman claims she is not jealous, but that does not mean she should like her. The gentleman touched the girl's cheek, and she thought that he had just teased her. He apologized and explained that he had lost his temper and assured her that she should not think about this lady anyway, because other women did not excite him at all. The girl says that she still hasn't let go of the past and thought about what if he had said those words 5 years ago when he tore her tender girl's heart into millions of pieces. The main character thought about what if he said that he had made the biggest mistake in his life and was ready to marry only her, and then asked if it seemed to him that he was too late with this, since the past could not be changed. Killian says that now he at least knows what she was thinking, and then agrees with her that the past cannot be changed, and therefore all he can do is try to hide it under pretty wrapping paper. The lady assures that she loves honesty, and the man reminds that, as he already said, she can behave as brazenly as she wants. Rowana wonders if she can be like the favorites in romantic novels. He says that then he will become a stupid man, completely obsessed with his mistress, because in such novels, good always triumphs in the end. The lady says that the main character, briefly distracted by the favorite, after a while returns to the beautiful, kind princess, and the stupid favorite pays with her life for her sins. The girl says that if the same fate awaits her as these villains, she asks whether he will cry for her, and wonders whether he will remember the poor favorite whose life remains on these pages, or whether he will live happily ever after with his princess. Killian asks if she would like this. The main character explains that she asks him the question because he wanted honesty, because she is just a favorite, and does not want him to find another woman and live happily with her only because she will no longer exist. The gentleman says that since she asked an honest question, he will give an honest answer, and then says that the dead can no longer be brought back, and he will not hold on to them. Rowana says that it is not surprising because she expected such a cold answer, and then asks what his dead bride means to him. Then, since the Duke of Devonshire decided to attend a social event for the first time in 5 years this year, they decided to throw a fox hunt with all their chic royal soul. The entertainment for men was the hunt itself, and women came there as to any other social event. Aristocrats of absolutely different ages communicated with each other while waiting for the end of the hunt. The lady turns to Miss Falone and says that she is even more beautiful today than usual, and the main character claims that she is flattering her. The Marchioness says that the necklace looks expensive, and Rowana says that it is a gift from the Duke. The woman says that it is unimaginably beautiful, and that is probably why his lordship values it so much. The Countess says that she is a little sorry that Her Majesty is not present today, and the girl agrees with her because she thinks that there is such a magnificent event here. The Marquise says she heard that His Majesty leaves the palace only for official events. At this time, Veronica comes up to them and asks what the ladies are talking about, and also wonders if she will be allowed to join in, and then turns to Lady Falone and says that she really wanted to talk to her. Rowana asks, what about the Marchioness? Says that when they bumped into each other, she failed to apologize properly and allowed herself to say something disrespectful. Hearing this, the Countess thought that disrespectful was putting it mildly. Veronica says that she thought a lot about that day and came to the conclusion that Miss Falone was wrong then, and therefore asks for forgiveness. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why she suddenly decided to apologize and what came over her, and the lady asks in surprise if she is asking for forgiveness for the incident when she ran into Miss Falone. The lady does not understand, but thinks that she has something in mind. But anger is not her friend, and asks why she is asking for forgiveness if she was to blame, and then says that she is almost ashamed that such a lady is apologizing to her for such an insignificant reason. Hearing this, the Marquise thought that she had not fallen for the trick, and said that the lady was as kind as she was beautiful, and now she would be calmer, and then she took her leave. The lady says that she couldn't have handled the situation better, and thinks that it turned out very elegantly, and the girl thought that it made her happy. Countess Rachel says, "That's enough for today," and asks Miss Falone to stay, because she wants to talk to her about something. The lady turns to the girl and praises her, and then says that she doesn't know why she suddenly decided to be soft. However, she suggests not giving her a reason to underestimate her. Rowana says that she understands this too, and suggests not to worry. The woman asks if the Duke said anything about this. She replies that nothing. The Countess says that she doesn't sound very confident, and then asks why, since she is more than sure that he loves her very much. The main character tells the woman that she still hasn't rested after the trip, and she would really like to go back to her room and rest, and then asks if she will be allowed to deviate. Countess Rachel, suggests meeting in the evening, and when the girl left, she thought that whenever she talks to her, she has a strange feeling that one day she will simply disappear, and she doesn't know where it comes from. Hertz Devonshire turns to the Countess, and she asks in surprise what brings him here, and then says that Miss Falone literally just went to her chambers. He says that he knows, and then says that he wants to ask her for something. Melissa tells the lady that tomorrow is the last day, and asks what hairstyle she should do for the evening reception. Rowana says not to worry too much because it's a normal thing. The maid says that on the last night they choose a queen. Hearing this, the lady asks in surprise how this is possible. Melissa explains that she has not been in the capital for a long time and does not know about new events, and then says that fox hunting is an event for men, and therefore women have nothing to do. So a couple of years ago, people decided to have a queen election, and the woman who gets the most votes on the last night would be the queen of the party until the morning. The main character asks what the benefit of this is, and the maid explains that until the end of the ball, she will be able to do whatever she wants, including choosing a man for the closing dance. Rowana says that she understands because she knows why Lady Veronica suddenly started behaving like that, and then she says that today she showed up when they were dusting tea and suddenly decided to apologize. Hearing this, the maid asks why so cunningly, and assumes that she probably wants to gain votes. The mistress says that she has no doubts because now she knows why she did it. Melissa says that there is no need to laugh about this, and then asks what if she is really chosen as queen, and suggests that suddenly she will do something bad. The lady says that they will already be in public, and then asks what she can do because she thinks the worst is impossible. Melissa says that she can ask the Duke to be her partner at the closing dance. The maid says that the mistress is not jealous at all because she does not care about what is happening around her, and she does not know greed. At this time, the main character thought that it's not that she doesn't have it, she just knows that it doesn't lead to anything. Rowana says she will change herself and tells the maid she can go. Then she starts to button her dress, but realizes she can't reach it. At this time, a gentleman entered the room, and the girl asked how the hunt went. He answered that it was not bad, and the lady asked if he would order something to be sewn from the killed foxes this time too. Killian says he was going to, but the forester said that silver foxes don't live here anymore. She says that's too bad. The Duke asks if it's true, and then says that he thought she didn't like such cruelty. The girl asks in surprise if he knew this, but still gave her furs. The man explains that she was very charmingly angry, and the lady claims that it is cruel. The gentleman asks how things are with Lady Veronica. She replies that she is too old to have a little girl pulling her hair. Killian asks if she's going to let this slide. She objects and says she's going to fight back. The Duke smiled and said that he gave her credit because if she were old, she would have just endured it. The lady asked what that meant and then said that it didn't matter because she was completely exhausted and wanted to go to bed. The man grabs the girl by the hand and asks why she stopped saying that she loves him, and looks at him with the same look, but he feels something different in him. Killian tells her to forget because he thinks he shouldn't have told him about it. Then he tells her that they are returning to the capital early the day after tomorrow. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, and then said that tomorrow night there would be a ball. He said that he thought that she would be happy because she would sooner return to her son. The lady does not understand why he started talking about Damien, and a question suddenly arose in her head that if he becomes interested in her son and finds out that he is his own son, then maybe he will change. Rowana thinks that this is a stupid question and does not understand why she just keeps thinking about such nonsense. And then she says that she is waiting for the election of the queen. The girl suggests enjoying each other while they are here, and then hugs and kisses the guy, and at that moment, she thought that she knows better than anyone that this person will never change. Countess Rachel tells Miss Filona that she is as beautiful today as ever. She thanks her and also tells her that the Countess is especially beautiful today. The woman smiled and thought that she was flattering her, and then said that the Duke of Devonshire was not visible, and asked where he was. And the main character explains that they came together, but he went off to talk to another gentleman. The Countess asks if he is not a bit worried, because he thinks that someone might steal his lovely partner. The girl asks when the election of the queen will begin, and the lady explains that it will be right after the banquet, and they still have time, and then asks Miss Filone if she knew that during the elections you can get extra points. Rowana was surprised to hear this, and the Countess explained that the woman whose partner caught the most faces gets 3 additional votes, and the Queen's own vote counts as 11 at once. Of Devonshire caught the most foxes, but the Queen didn't come, and that means there's a very good chance that she'll be the queen of the ball today. The main character says that, to be honest, she is not very interested in this, and even if she is chosen, it will not give anything. Rachel objects and says that she will not agree with this, and then claims that tonight is special and strongly advises to try to score as many points as possible. The woman looked to the left and saw the Duke with Veronica and said that this girl had her eye on the gentleman. At this time, the Marchioness says that she has not seen the Duke of Devonshire for a long time. He claims that they met literally yesterday, and the girl explains that she did not mean that. Veronica says that when she was little 10 years ago, they met in the royal palace and asks if he remembers it. Killian apologizes and then says that he doesn't remember people he meets by chance. She says that's okay because she thinks the main thing is that he remembers tonight. At this time, the Duke looked at Rowena and thought that she was looking straight at him. The waiter did not see the main character and turned over the tray with wine, and the Duke quickly ran up to the lady but managed to ask forgiveness from Lady Veronica, explaining that he needed to talk to his partner. Killian walked up to the girl and put his hand on her shoulder and asked if she was okay. The girl said that everything was fine and that her dress was just wet. The gentleman suggests that she go into the tent because they need to talk, and at the same time she can change her clothes. The man asks about the necklace he gave her, and Rowana, surprised, asks what he's talking about. He explains that it's the diamond one he recently put on her. The girl says that it should be in the box, and when she saw it, she thought that this ring is very beautiful, but she thinks that it doesn't suit her at all. Killian suggests wearing it today, and she says she wanted to pick out something to go with the dress. The gentleman asks if she will do it her way. The main character thought that he was trying to control her, again, as if she were a thing that belonged to him. At this time, the man thought that if she could see her face, she still didn't understand that she couldn't control her emotions at all. And then he said that they would compromise. The Duke informs her that this scarf is made of silver fox fur, and she can wear any dress she chooses, but on the condition that she also wears this scarf, because she thinks it will look good with the necklace. The main character reflects on the fact that as she thought he has not changed a bit, but the only difference is that 5 years ago, she was sitting in a cage, and now she is flying around it, chained by the leg, and this necklace presses on her neck like shackles. The Countess suggests that Miss Falone move quickly, since the voting has already begun. The girl apologizes and then says that she simply had to change. Rachel reports that she is currently leading by 5 votes and therefore thinks there is nothing to worry about, as she believes that if she wins, his lordship will be very happy. The man announces that it is time to announce the last vote, although he already thinks that everyone understands who won, and then announces that the last vote is leaving. At this time, the servant announces that Her Majesty the Queen has arrived. The lords were surprised when they heard this, because they thought that she would not come. Rachel says that she is the Queen's chief maid of honor, and she is here on her behalf, and this means that they should treat her like the Queen herself. Rowana asks why she suddenly came. The lady-in-waiting says that she is here on behalf of the Queen, due to her poor physical and mental condition. She was unable to come, but decided to give her voice to Lady Veronica. The host says that the result is a 1-vote majority, and Lady Veronica is elected as the Queen of the festival. The Marquise, hearing this, was delighted, and then thanked him and said that she was very flattered. The host asked Her Majesty what her first decree would be. She said that she would like to choose a man who would be with her during the night. The man says that it is impossible to choose a married or engaged man, and asks if she knows this. Veronica says that she thinks everyone already knows that she will choose Duke Killian Devonshire, and then asks if he agrees. The host says that, as it was said, if a man is not engaged and not married, he cannot go against the Queen's order. The Duke says that unfortunately he is forced to refuse, and says that he is already engaged to Miss Falone. Having heard this, the Lord was surprised, and Veronica asked since when Miss Falone was his fiancée, and screaming said that this was some kind of nonsense, since they didn't even have an official ceremony, and it was absolutely against the rules. Countess Rachel says that in fact she was, and that his lordship told her everything in advance, and therefore asks to be allowed to clarify. Rachel reports that during an engagement ceremony, a gentleman gives a lady his mother's jewelry, and the lady accepts it and wears it. The lady says that the necklace that Miss Philo is wearing right now used to belong to the Duchess of Devonshire, and although it probably wasn't official, they are already engaged. Killian turns to Rowana and asks what's wrong with her, and isn't this what she always wanted? The main character was surprised, because she doesn't remember when she wanted to get married and become his wife, have children, and live happily. She dreamed about this before. Lady Di thinks that this is a fairy tale that she forgot about when she realized that his love is just an illusion, and then says that she wants to announce something and asks if he will allow it. The man says that she can do whatever her heart desires. The main character turns to the gentleman and asks for a moment of attention. Rowana says that, as they all heard, she is engaged to the Duke of Devonshire, but there has not been an official ceremony yet, and then she says that she will be in the Lops Islands in 3 months, and therefore hope to see them all there. The lady says in surprise that if they are really engaged, then Miss Falona will become a duchess, and claims that they will of course come, and then congratulates them, because she considers it an honor for them to receive an invitation. The main character thought that, just like Killian had planned, everyone present would witness her death. Rowana asks the Duke why he did it. He claims that it was because she wanted it. The girl agrees with him, and then says that he simply caught her off guard in public, and she did not agree to this, and asks why he did not warn her in advance. Killian asked if she agreed, if he said so beforehand. The lady wonders why he suddenly decided to marry her. The man explains that this is because he realized that 5 years ago there was a serious misunderstanding, and he was told that she was cheating on him with a man named William Zeno. Hearing this, the girl objects and asks how he could even think that, and the man asks what connects them. Then, the lady explains that she was writing a book at the time, and she sent him the manuscript, and he contacted her, saying that he had potential, and that was the only reason she met him. Killian asks why she didn't tell him about it. Lady explains that it was because she knew he wouldn't approve of it, because when he was a tyrant, and Gertrude was the first belle. The Duke says that at first he thought that she was behind all this, But during the interrogation, she insisted until the very end that it was her plan. But after she left the mansion, she was finished off by making it look like a suicide. The gentleman says that Gertrude was killed, and then shows the ring and asks if she remembers it. He says that the woman who stole him was killed in the same way, and it must be that the criminal was trying to get to her. The main character thought that the criminal was the man who 5 years ago took advantage of her naivety in order to falsely accuse her, and this man even committed murder in order to distance her from the Duke. Killian reports that this is Baron Benedict Sussex, and he thinks that he did not want her to be near him because he believes that this man is one of those people who try to get rid of any threat, even hypothetical. The lady says in surprise that she can't believe it's the Baron. The gentleman says that he ran away in another direction, and he plans to get rid of him as soon as he finds him, and therefore asks her for forgiveness. At this time, the girl thought that even though the Baron had blamed her for everything, he didn't understand what was changing because he believed his words and threw her away like a pile of trash. Rowana says that she has dreamed countless times of him apologizing to her for what he did, and dreamed of him finding out the truth and sincerely and heartfeltly apologizing, saying that he was to blame for what happened. The lady understands that these are pathetic dreams that she held on to until the very end, but he didn't even say that he regretted what happened. The girl says that she is very tired and suggests that he act as he knows with the Baron and with the engagement and everything else. He says that he was very surprised when she said that she wants to spend the help on the Lops Islands. Rowana reminds that she already said that she only has bad memories of that place, but she wants to rewrite them. He says that if they are good memories, then he will definitely give them to her. The girl remembered her uncle's words that there was a way to escape, and he would do everything in his power, but she had to ask the Duke to take her there on the appointed date, because that was where she would die. Hearing this, the main character is surprised and asks how she will die. Uncle says that she knows that every summer on the southern islands there are severe storms. Jeremy thought about how a few years ago, when he was researching the literature on the southern islands for a novel, he came across an entry about the Lops Islands. It told of a boy who got into something and was later found safe and sound on the other side of the island. The author conducted research and discovered that due to the unique shape of the island, ocean currents weaken in a certain area and flow directly to the other side of the island. The documents were very old, so he thinks that even the islanders don't know about this cave. Uncle says that this year there will be storms too, and they will take advantage of the weather and find a potential witness and sail away from the shore while the weather hasn't gotten too bad. The man says that when the storm starts, they will jump into the ocean together, and everyone will think that the boat simply capsized. Hearing this, the girl objects and says that it is too dangerous, and then asks what will happen to her son. He says that he will hold him, and if the recording is not a lie and everything really happens, then no problems should arise. Rowana says that he will also be in danger, but Uncle claims that only Killian is in danger Devonshire, and then claims that this is her only chance to escape, and she must do it now or never. The lady thought that if she misses this opportunity, she will remain Killian's puppet for the rest of her days, but she thinks that she doesn't care about that because she doesn't care what happens to her, and then she says that she agrees. The next day, a child came running to the Rowan, and she asked if he had fun with his uncle, and also wondered if he had forgotten to study. The teacher says that naturally the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and he is good at writing all over his mother. Jeremy reports that he read her novel, which Melissa showed him, and it is better than he expected, and he will say that more than that is enough to send it to print. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, and then claimed that this manuscript was already 5 years old, and it was good only because she constantly made changes. The teacher asks if she ever thought about publishing it, and the niece explains that she didn't even think about it and just wrote it, but she understands that it all started with the novel, but she doesn't regret anything. The main character realizes that 5 years ago, her favorite activity was writing. The uncle turns to the boy and says that he looked at his mother and did his homework, so he suggests going outside to play. Damien says that sounds good, and the teacher suggests that he change his clothes and wait outside. Jeremy tells Rowena that he saw the headlines and asks if he can explain where the news of his engagement to the Duke came from. The lady explains that she tried to avoid it, but he didn't care one bit whether she wanted it or not. The uncle says that he thought the man was a dog, but it turns out he's also mad, and then asks when the ceremony is. The main character explains that the coming summer on the Lops Islands, and then explains that she had to end up there somehow anyway, and if her death has many witnesses, then no one will be able to refute it. Rowana claims that no one will question her, and that a convincing tragedy needs a worthy audience, and then announces that her wedding dress will become her burial attire. The nanny asks the young gentleman why he is so happy, because they always play ball. The boy says that he has never played with the teacher before. The head maid tells the nanny that the woman who was supposed to replace her today is sick, and that's why her sister came. Then she claims that everything will be fine with him. At this time, Damien threw the ball, and the puppy ran after it. When the boy ran after the puppy, he saw Killian, and in surprise called him Mr. Ghost. The child asks if ghosts can go out into the sunlight and also wonders if they fly. The gentleman claims that he has confused ghosts with vampires. The Duke asks if he played as a child, because he knows that kicking a ball around with friends is a lot of fun. The child says that here he usually plays alone, and then claims that it doesn't matter and offers to teach the gentleman how to play. Damien claims that a good dad should be able to play ball, but the man thanks him, and it turns out the child asks if he is ashamed because he can't play, and then says that his mother always said that no one is perfect, and everyone has flaws, and everyone has people they value. Killian asks what else his mother said. The boy says that if he plays with him, he might remember, because Mr. Dyphons says that fresh air clears the brain. The butler tells Miss that they have almost finished compiling the guest list for the engagement ceremony. She agrees with him and thanks him for his help, and the man claims that this is his job, and says that there is no need to treat one so respectfully since she is almost the mistress of the house. The lady objects and says that it is not yet, and believes that servants should be respected, and the man says that he never ceases to be amazed by her, because she is modest, delicate, and sensitive, and he is sorry that he could not help her 5 years ago, and always wanted to apologize for this. The butler says that if I may say frankly, his lordship is not the best person, and he is sure that she has already become very close to him, but he has served him since his birth, and no one knows him better than he does. The servant reports that when the master breaks ties with a person, his cruelty goes beyond all bounds, and this has earned him universal respect, admiration, and fear. However, he believes that he lacks something extremely important, and that is love. Dvoretsky says that between a parent and a child, between a man and a woman, there should be love, and all his life, he lacked precisely this feeling that ordinary people constantly share with each other. His lordship's father, the former duke, died in an accident, and soon after his mother returned to her homeland, but she never returned. Rowana says she has never heard of it. The man claims that even without parents, Mr. Devonshire managed well, and yet many people wanted to get their hands on the young heir's wealth. The man reports that he was constantly surrounded by sycophants and people who wanted to get rid of him, and he is almost certain that such unpleasant company influenced his development as a person. But even now, every time he sees his lordship, he remembers the little lonely boy and let everyone be afraid of him. But his heart bleeds. But now he sees hope, that the look softens when he looks at her and asks if she has noticed it. The butler says that every time he sees them together, he begins to believe that soon everything will change a lot, and he doesn't know how to thank her. Hearing this, the main character thought that maybe his feeling is an obsession, a desire to possess nothing more, and can in no way be called love. The servant says that he kept this information to himself all this time, and asks if the mistress is tired and advises her to rest. Rowan suggests that he also take care of himself. The main character remembered the butler's words and thought that she needed to hold out until her room. And the maid tells Miss that Mr. Janok asks her to meet him in the garden. The gentleman's assistant tells the lady that his lordship wants work on her portrait to begin today, and as she knows this is the custom of the Devonshire house, Janok turns to Rowana and asks if she is okay. The girl replies that she is just a little nauseous, and the man suggests that they do it tomorrow since she is not feeling well now. The girl thought that she would no longer run away and would come face to face, and not only the portrait, but nothing would shake her. The process turned out to be longer than the main character expected, and every day for a month, the artist spent 2 hours on just one sketch. Afterwards, with exquisite brush strokes, he created a warm, life-filled background and details of his elegant dress, and all that was left was to paint her face. Dvoretsky tells the gentleman that the artist said that he is waiting for that perfect smile, and he refuses to finish the portrait until he sees it, and then says that his passion for work deserves praise. The servant says that the engagement will be in 3 months, and by that time the portrait should be ready, but he is not sure that he will meet the deadline.